But I do think a current that we're going to see, and it's about change. It's going to be about the mental. I think we have the most incredible leader in female, and I think she is becoming and she's encouraging more women as well to don't have a representative amount of females within. We have the likes of Mary Lou MacDonald and Holly, male representatives at the foreline. We're not slowing down anytime soon, and we're just going to see more coming from the party, absolutely.
There was a big storm, I suppose, when the local elections were on. Women for Election campaign began running, and there was a huge surge of popularity and a huge surge of conversation, if we can say, around getting more women to put themselves forward. Is that what spurred you particularly, Sinead Ellen, or was it something that you thought, now is the time because I don't see myself represented on a national picture?
I would definitely say it was probably a mix of the two. I definitely felt that, you know, in your mid-30s, I didn't feel like my age group, my demographic was being represented. But also then it was kind of, well, look, I am a female. There are areas that need to be addressed. We need to see more female figures out there. And I was vocal between family and friends on my thoughts. So that decision was really a combination of the both, and saying, look, if I want to speak on matters, I have to be willing to put the action in as well. Probably just a bonus that, you know, if it encourages any other female to think in a likewise manner, absolutely amazing. But even yesterday, you know, we had figures coming out that we were set to overreach the EU average of female voters out for an election. But proof is in the pudding, you know.
And we're looking again at a national picture. It's quite likely we're going to see that Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael coalition. There will be a third element there, whether that is the Social Democrats, I don't think at this stage the Green Party is an option. It very well could be Labour, or it could be a mixture of independents. Would you like to see the Social Democrats be part of that coalition, or do you think there's an element of joining a coalition just to fill the required seats?
I think there would definitely be a fear of that occurring, just because we've already had the coalition of Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael. They've clearly had experience of working together, and I think that dynamic would be very difficult for a third party to enter and to have an equal partnership within that conversation. I think as well you need to really think about what policies, you know, would be there within a coalition of three parties. Almost to a sense, too many people might inhibit anything occurring. Or will the Social Democrats, will their views even be heard in such a mix? So it's difficult to tell, really.
Sinead Ellen Griffin, thank you so much for joining me from the Social Democrats. That is me done from the SETU Account Centre for now. We're going to cut to news very, very shortly. Stay tuned.
across Waterford, on mobile and the smart speaker. This is Waterford's WLR.
WLR News at 8. Good evening, I'm Kyle Butler. Sinn Féin's David Cullinane has been re-elected to the Dáil and retains his seat in Waterford. The latest figures show Fine Gael's John Cummins will take the second seat of the 4-seat Waterford constituency. And we're going to cross live now to our WLR News and Current Affairs team on the Cork Road at SETU. And I'm joined now by Jordan Norris and Dimfna Nugent. Guys, I was just looking at our live stream coverage on WLRFM.com and there seems to be a bit of a lull. Has Count 2 commenced?
Count 2 has commenced indeed, Kyle. So we're redistributing the 1,205 surplus that David Cullinane had. David Cullinane reaching the quota of 10,731 with 11,936 first preference votes. So it's been quite, I suppose, an interesting day building up to this moment. It seems as if David Cullinane, of course, has topped the poll. We're waiting for John Cummins and Mary Butler to potentially be called as well. And then all eyes are on the dogfight for the fourth and final seat between Matt Shanahan, Independent TD, and Conor McGuinness of Sinn Féin. And I'm joined now by Dimfna Nugent. Dimfna, you might give an overview of the figures from that first count.
I will indeed, Jordan. Beginning with Mary Butler, she received 9,962 first preference votes. Aintu's Ronan Cleary, 1,664. Independent candidate Frank Conway, 715 votes. Of course, as you mentioned, Sinn Féin's David Cullinane has been elected with 11,936 votes. And just to give a little bit of information there, I suppose, if we look at 2020, he received 20,569 first preference votes, but he was the only candidate that Sinn Féin put forward. Now, if we're going to look this year, Cullinane received 11,936 votes. Conor McGuinness received 5,791. Together, that's 17,727 combined votes. It is less than 2020, so it's always a gamble running that second candidate, but it does look indeed as though it's paying off. John Cummins, 10,376 first preference votes. Patrick Curtin, who is People Before Profit and Solidarity, 643. As we said, Sinn Féin's Conor McGuinness, 5,791. Independent candidate Aaron Joyce, 162 votes, followed by independent candidate Killian Mangan at 620. Not a good day for the Green Party nationally or locally, as current TD Marco Kohosig received 1,671 votes. Independent candidate Mark O'Neill, 56 votes. Labour's Sive O'Neill, first-time candidate, 1,500 votes. Social Democrats Mary Roach, 2,717. Independent Matt Shanahan, all eyes are on him for that fourth seat, together with Conor McGuinness, 5,355 first preference votes, and the Irish People's John D. Walsh at 482. So it's interesting, Jordan, because we know it's highly unlikely that anyone's going to be elected in the second count, which we expect to get underway, or it is currently underway. We expect to hear some feedback from that very shortly, but I don't expect there to be any movement in terms of anybody elected in that second count.
Absolutely, and I suppose all eyes in a way come down to transfers eventually, Dimfna, looking at that potential fourth seat, the battle between Matt Shanahan and Conor McGuinness, because when you look at the seats that will probably go beforehand in terms of the candidates being eliminated from the battle, the transfers, there's not a lot left from the West Waterford side for Conor McGuinness. And again, you're looking at some of the names, the likes of Mary Roach, Sive O'Neill. Where will their votes go? That will come down and play an awful lot in this. It
will, because right now you could almost call it, I suppose, before anything changes, as being David Cullinane followed by John Cummins, realistically followed by Mary Butler, and that fourth seat then dancing between Conor McGuinness or Matt Shanahan. That fourth seat could completely change. We don't know where Ronan Cleary's votes are going to go. If Mary Roach's circumstances don't change, she won't get that fourth seat. We don't know what's going to happen to her vote. Traditionally, vote left, transfer left has always been their motto. You cannot call it at this moment in time. We simply don't know.
We simply don't know, but that's the joy of it as well. So we're going to cross back to you in studio now, Kyle. We have a Data Today special coming up between 8 and 9. As we mentioned, the second count is underway, redistributing the 1,205 surplus from David Cullinane. But until then, that's all from us on the news desk.
Thank you for that update, Dimfna and Jordan. As mentioned, David Cullinane was the first TD elected for Sinn Féin. The party is doing well, but may not get the 50 seats that they were tipped to earlier today. The Waterford deputy says he's remaining optimistic.
We'll have to wait and see what the final shake-up will be. I think at the start of the campaign, Sinn Féin was on about 16 and 17% in the opinion polls, so we certainly did gain during the campaign. We certainly are not at the point that we were maybe a year ago or 2 years ago. I'm not sure if that was sustainable in the first position, but we're certainly in play for seats that were written off at the start of this campaign. If you look at some of the constituencies where potentially we'll hold on to seats that some commentators said were lost.
Outgoing Taoiseach Simon Harris believes Fine Gael will outperform the most recent opinion polls and hold its vote. He's confident his party will be a leading party in the next government.
It's likely now, I believe, that it will be possible to work to form a stable centrist government that can provide good government to the country for the next 5 years. My party, I think, can play a very important role in that. I think we can play a leadership role in that. I think the strength of the relative strength of the parties remains unknown. But what I do definitely know, and I think anybody who's watched the coalition, the current coalition, would say that principle of parity of esteem has been really important.
Trusted news for Waterford. We are WLR.
In other news this evening, Vladimir Zelensky has suggested he may contest to Russia holding on to occupied Ukrainian territory as part of a ceasefire deal. The Ukrainian president told Sky News that arrangement would only be possible if land under his forces' control was taken under the NATO umbrella. Tony Brenton, former British ambassador to Russia, says is a very significant statement by Zelensky.
The Russians really, really hate the idea of Ukraine joining NATO because they see NATO as an offensive alliance directed against them, and for Ukraine to be part of an alliance attacking Russia is simply something they won't do.
And that's the latest from the newsroom. For all your Waterford general election news this weekend, keep up to date and on air on our live stream service on WLRFM.com.
Yes, welcome back to our Daisha Today special from our special studio set up in the Cork Road campus, the main campus of SETU, the technological university that has been delivered since the last election. One of the things that Mary Butler and other government candidates and TDs would have spoken about. She's here laughing at me now. Yes, you're right, Damien. And others will say, no, it's still not a university. Doesn't matter, it's a technology, it's grand, it's here, and it's brilliant. And I'll tell you who's really, really brilliant. A chap called Keane, who works in the audiovisual section, and everybody in the audiovisual section at SCTU. And Keane and Dean, the two main people behind putting all this together. If you are on any of our streams, and if it drops at any stage, there's no problem. Just come out of it and go back into it again, and it should reconnect. So it happens every now and then on the YouTube or Facebook or something like that. So I had a few people from Passage there texting me, maybe they need a new mast in Passage, that would help. Oh no, don't mention that, Damien, don't mention the war. Mary Butler, I'm an awful man for stirring it, haven't I?
You're very good at it.
Oh!
I was actually going to bring in a wooden spoon with me.
A good slap is what I need, absolutely. Mary Butler, TD for Fianna Fáil and Minister for Older People, Junior Minister in the Department of Health, and Minister for Mental Health is on the couch with us to have a little chat with us. Thank you very much for joining us on this Daisha Today special. And special mention to this man who's sitting in front of you. His name is Lawrence. Tell me a little bit about Lawrence.
So Lawrence is my PA. He has been working with me now for 4 years.
Turn around and wave at the camera there. Wave at the camera, Lawrence. There you are.
Lawrence has actually been working with me for the last 5 years, and Lawrence would have worked previously for my late colleague and friend Bobby Aylward. A lot of people would know Bobby from South Kilkenny, and Lawrence came on board with my team, and he's absolutely amazing. I'm so lucky to have him. And
I know Lawrence's mammy.
You do indeed, yes.
Mary Fanning of Nationwide, just recently retired. And lovely lady, and worked very, very hard on great packages over the years. First time meeting Lawrence, and well done, Lawrence. And I know a lot of the work that Lawrence does epitomises a lot of the work that you do, Mary, in terms of the hard work behind the scenes. So, firstly, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Just remind our listeners, what did you do? What first preference did you get?
So 9,962 votes on the first count. So I'm absolutely delighted with that. It's an increase on the last election. And I'm really, really happy because every single vote is hard won. We ran a great campaign, pure grassroots campaign, the Fianna Fáil way, out knocking on doors, out talking to people, out going to as many events as possible and pressing the flesh. And people did want to engage. Not everyone wanted to engage, but people did want to engage. And I was actually surprised on Thursday night. We were doing our very last canvass inside in Belvedere Drive in Waterford City, up near Welsh Park. And I knocked on a door and a woman said to me, "You're the first person I've seen." And now, admittedly, she said, I'm away in work during the day, so maybe people had called. But that was coming up a lot on the doors, that they didn't see as many candidates as previously.
And just to remind our listeners and our viewers, your previous first preference count was 6,644, 12.36%. That was in 2020. I can go back over the other ones as well, but we'll just take that as the most recent one. And during that election campaign, you had Eddie Mulligan as well. He won 2,600. So we'll talk in a minute about the dynamic of that. But firstly, some of those percentages that you were telling me about in different parts of the constituency in terms of the vote that you got out. Just tell me again about that.
So I was really pleased with, now, albeit I'm talking about the tally statistics that we got. So, the final votes are not in yet. But it appears I got the most votes in the Portlaw, Kilmacthomas, Cumra area where I'm from. I was really pleased about that, in around 25.5%. And in the Lismore area, so Tallow, Lismore, Capriquin, all that area, I took about 31% of the vote up there. And I suppose I was struck by a lot of the conversations that you would have had on Daisha that, West Waterford doesn't have a TD. My office is open in Dungarvan with 8 years, open every day of the week, fully staffed, and I've worked tirelessly to represent all people of Waterford City and County. Over 85% of my vote always comes from the county. About 15% comes from the city, and it actually looks quite similar again, regardless of the overall figure. That's the way it's looking to us. But look, I just want, if I could, I just want to thank, first going down, I want to thank John O'Leary. So John O'Leary was, Councillor John O'Leary was my Director of Elections. He was appointed by Fianna Fáil. This is his third time. I want to thank Mick, my husband, who was my campaign manager. I want to thank my family. I want to thank my staff especially, and I also want to thank the Fianna Fáil party, the likes of Sean Dower of the Corladall County Chairman, and all of those that came on board with me. They were relentless for the last 3-4 weeks, out every day, out every night. And I used to post daily what we were doing on Instagram, just to let people know how serious I was about getting re-elected. And I have to say, you're only one part of the team, but it was really important that you have a good team around you, and I was very lucky in that respect. And
I've spoken to the other people that have been on this couch so far today about the personal and the political. So in your own case, in terms of a cancer, in terms of your husband Michael, in terms of a cancer, in terms of other family matters that came up that may well have been very stressful, in terms of abuse you would have been getting, in terms of all those things that you have to deal with, that you, when you go home and you close the door, other people in other jobs can forget about. But you weren't allowed to forget about some of those things.
No, and I suppose especially in relation to when Michael was diagnosed with prostate cancer, it was during COVID. And it was very, very helpful at that time that it was during COVID, because there was a lot of work going on from home and you weren't allowed visitors. And I remember after he having the surgery, he was so delighted that no family could actually vote, could actually visit at that time. It was restrictive visiting, and all of that helped. And then I had 2.5 years ago now, and I've spoken about it on many times on Daisha in relation to being in Brussels for St. Patrick's Day 2022, and a doctor came up to me and said to me, "Do you realise you have a BCC, a basal cell carcinoma, on your face?" And I had. And I had to have 2 surgeries, and that's all quite difficult because you're still working away the whole time. You're conscious of the type of job you have, and coupled with that, as well as representing this great city and county of Waterford, I was a Minister of State for Mental Health and Older People. And what a lot of people probably didn't realise was I had the 8th highest budget in the whole of the ministers and ministers of state. So there's people sitting at cabinet table that didn't have as high a budget as me. My budget was 4 billion. It will be 4.5 billion next year. I managed to increase it quite a bit in for next year's budget. And you're conscious of everything that you're responsible for as well. And when you're working in the Department of Health, you're firefighting because you have to deal with a lot of legacy issues. I dealt with a lot of legacy issues that happened when I wasn't even a politician. And you're the minister of the day and you just have to get on with it.
In terms of the Fianna Fáil party, it's easy in some respects to unite behind one candidate because there is only one candidate. And that is the same with Fine Gael and same with other, do you know what I mean? Your party people, you're with us, let's row in behind these candidates. But even at that, you might get cases that people don't necessarily row in. The figures that are in your first count are testament and testimony to the party apparatus and yourself for saying the one candidate strategy is the best strategy. Is that a fair thing to say?
I think it is a fair thing to say. I spoke to Sean Dorgan this morning, our General Secretary. He was actually on RTE for a couple of hours this afternoon with other people just discussing different strategies. And, Fianna Fáil were looking at the election in the summer. They would have polled me during the summer. I would have polled quite well, higher than what we got in the local elections, and I have built up a personal vote as well. And they looked at the situation. They would have compared it to 2020. They would have compared it to 2016 when I took 10,603 votes and topped the poll first time out. And I suppose they would have looked at the whole scenario, and a lot of discussions would be had. It's scientific as well, and they decide what's best for the party. And they made that decision and they stuck with the decision. And I want to thank all 5 Fianna Fáil councillors, each and every one of them, that came out and supported me every step of the way. Adam was out with me. Adam contested the convention and he was out with me several times. And, they all came on board, each and every one of them.
I know you're going to get very emotional tonight when you are elected, whether it's tonight or tomorrow. I want to wish you the very, very best. I'm going to let you go back down now because we've been told there's an announcement in the next 3 minutes, okay? It may be likely that you're not getting elected tonight. Again, we'll see. You might still pull in ahead of John Cummins.
Well, look, do you know what I mean? It's all there on the sheets. The count gets frustratingly slow at this stage because they have to check every ballot sheet. But just before I finish, can I just say one thing? I just want to thank you, the newsroom team, the whole team of WLR, to be able to log on to your laptop or your phone at 9:15 this morning and see it happening. In reality, in real time. For an awful lot of people, they don't understand how it works. And I was sending that link on. That link was all the way up in Fianna Fáil headquarters this morning. It went all over to my cousins in Cork and beyond. And,
that's public service broadcasting.
It is.
At local level.
It is, absolutely. And I just want to thank each and every one of you for the work that you have done and for all the support that you do give, because you do allow politicians,
Ladies and
airtime.
gentlemen,
Thank you,
the
Minister.
returning officer is about to make an announcement.
The following is the result of the second count, which consists of the distribution of David Cullinan's surplus of 1,205 votes, 1,205 votes. Butler Mary, Fianna Fáil, vote this count 42, total votes 10,004. 10004. Cleary Ronan Aintu, vote this count 16, 1, total votes 1680. Frank Conway, non-party, votes this count 7, total votes 722. Cummins John, Fine Gael, votes this count 52, total votes 10,428. 10428. Conor D. McGuinness, Sinn Féin, votes this count 901. Total votes 6,692. 6692. Joyce Aaron, non-party, votes this count 2. Total votes 164. 164. Mangan Killian, non-party, votes this count 7. Total votes 627. Mark O'Cosig, Green Party, votes this count 12. Total votes 1,683. 1683. Mark O'Neill, non-party, votes this count 1, total votes 57. Sive O'Neill, the Labour Party, votes this count 18, total votes 1518. Roach Mary, Social Democrats, votes this count 48, total votes 2,765. Shanahan Matt, non-party, votes this count 70, total votes 5,425, 5425. John D. Walsh, the Irish People, votes this count 3, total votes 485. Non-transferable papers not effective, 0. As there is no surplus for this distribution, I will now exclude the lowest candidates and distribute their vote. Mark O'Neill, 57 votes, 5-7. Aaron Joyce, 164 votes, 164.
Okay, so there you have heard the results of the second count, which is the transferring, or the distribution, of the surplus of what David Cullinan got to get him elected. That was Michelle O'Connell talking to us. Now, Dympna and Jordan have been taking down those figures, and Dympna has them there in front. So we won't go through them all, Dympna, but let's go to, I suppose, one of the most important things. Conor McGuinness was hoping to get a big transfer of David Cullinan's vote. So how many votes did David Cullinan have to give away, and how many did Conor McGuinness get?
Conor McGuinness was originally sitting there at 5,791. He is now sitting at 6,692. He's certainly not sitting at anywhere that we thought he was going to be.
But he got 901 votes from David Cullinan.
He did.
Okay, 901. So that's a big chunk of votes.
It's a big chunk of votes, but I still don't think he's going to be happy because he's not where he needs to be. You know, I know we had initially earlier on said if he was anything less than 500, he was maybe going to be in a little bit of bother, that there's no guarantee. He's still not out of the water.
Now, Matt Shanahan got 70 votes from David Cullinan. Yep. So what is Matt Shanahan on?
Matt Shanahan is currently on 5,425.
So 5,425.
Yep.
And how much behind approximately Conor McGuinness is he?
He's about 1,200 behind.
1,200 behind. Okay. We were talking to some people down there, both you and me and others beforehand, saying if there's 1,000 between Shanahan and McGuinness after Cullinan's surplus is distributed, it might be too much for Shanahan to pick up.
It's hard.
But,
yeah,
like, it's 1,200 votes of a difference.
Mm-hmm.
You still think there could be enough momentum within the transfers of Shanahan's compatriots, I'll put it like that, in terms of people in the east of the county, to give him enough?
I do indeed, because I think if you look at, we're not really sure what's going to happen with the likes of Ronan Cleary, but if you simply look to Mary Roach, I think you're almost guaranteed that a fine bulk of her votes are going to transfer to Matt Shanahan, and I wouldn't expect to see it any other way. So I don't think he's in the clear yet.
Yeah, 1,200, it's a lot to make up.
It is a lot. It's a lot to make up, but I'm not comfortable with saying he's done it yet.
Oh, I'd agree with you. Absolutely, I'd agree with you.
There's still too much to play for. There's still too many cards in the air. We're looking at these names here. I know we're going to distribute Mark O'Neill's votes and Aaron Joyce's. I don't imagine they're going to impact us terribly one way or the other, but still you go back to the likes of Mary Roach. She has 2,765. We're not out of the woods yet.
And again, it depends on how people are eliminated and what order they're eliminated. So for those that don't know too much about the system, there will be some votes that people may have within that bundle of votes that may not come into play depending on how they're eliminated. So more than likely, as you say, ain two votes are going to be important. Mm-hmm. They may well give, for example, Matt Shanahan a boost.
Indeed.
And then Mary Roach's votes, Mark O'Cahussig's votes. Mm-hmm. And then you have, as you said earlier as well, where people vote left or do they vote geography?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
It's fascinating, and I love that we almost look at the national picture separately from the local picture, because I do believe, and I will always believe, that you vote for a personality locally. Yeah. I do. You can have your political beliefs, but I think locally, Waterford has always voted for a personality rather than a party, and I think that's going to come into play massively today. I'll
let you get back to it there, Jim. Thank you very, very much. Appreciate it. Good to talk to you. So, the very latest there is that we've had our second count, and we have had the surplus of David Cullinan's votes, and they have been distributed. And 901 of those votes have gone to Conor McGuinness. So David Cullinan had 1,205 votes of a surplus, and 901 have gone to Conor McGuinness. So Conor McGuinness is now at 6692. Matt Shanahan is at 5425. Okay, so there is daylight there between Conor McGuinness and Matt Shanahan. The reason we're focusing on those two at the minute is because the selection or election of the next two candidates looks like it's going to be fairly obvious. We're going to have John Cummins, 10,428, and then we have Mary Butler, 10,004. So neither of those have reached the quota, and the quota is 10,704, I think it is. So it looks like 31. It looks like that they both of those will be elected in the next while. We're not sure when. It probably won't happen in the next count, and we will have more talk about that in a little while. I've got Jordan to come to the couch with me for a little while now, and we're going to go back over some of the tallies, Jordan, if you don't mind, some of the tally sheets that are on our special tally counter. So what we did this morning was we took pictures of dozens of the tally sheets, and we will just get onto our tally page and we'll have a look at that now. Just take me through, I suppose, a couple of the ones that strike out for you.
Okay, Damien, so I have one open for me here, just at a random look here. So this is the box in Grange NS, booth 1, so Grange in Ardmore, 121. You can see there, 57 votes for Mary Butler, 43 votes for John Cummins, 39 votes for Conor McGuinness. So you can see quite an even spread between those three candidates there. The West vote, I suppose, has kind of gone to the three candidates that are kind of leading the race, so to speak. I know Conor McGuinness has done well quite in the West, but David Cullinan, John Cummins, Mary Butler, they've all performed quite well in those areas, the Dungarvan and Lismore areas as well. I know it was mentioned this morning by John Hearn as well. There was actually one box in the St. Paul's booth, Damien, where David Cullinan polled at 96%. I mean, out of every 25 votes, 24 votes went to David Cullinan. It was actually a great quote from John Hearn at the time. He said, you actually wouldn't get that in the Falls Road.
That's right. He said that to me as well. I'm going to mention Kill, for example. So we had one of the boxes in Kill. And for Mary Butler, for example, had, and these were the only tallies from this morning, but they turned out to be fairly accurate. Mary Butler had 42 votes in that particular box. John Cummins had 39. Conor McGuinness had 14. And David Cullinan had 39 as well. Matt Shanahan then came in at 29. So throughout the tallies we saw a fairly consistent theme that the top five were hoovering up votes in most areas.
Absolutely.
Again, David Cullinan, as you say, in certain areas was way out ahead, and that proved to be the case. But then in other areas where there was, I suppose, a lot to play for all the candidates, the better ones in terms of their better vote-getting chances and vote-collecting, they managed to pick up votes in many places.
Absolutely. I think it was really interesting when you were looking at the overall perspective as the boxes kept opening, Damien. Like at one point, I think it was when it was about 33.3%, David Cullinan had about nearly 30% of the overall vote share in Waterford. Obviously, that gradually came back over time geographically as more boxes opened across the county. But then again, you saw it was kind of a ebbed and flowed between John Cummins and Mary Butler as to who was second, who was third. Comes back to Matt Shanahan and Conor McGuinness as well. I mean, Conor McGuinness was in the lead by as much as 2%. Then Matt Shanahan claws it back as well. Matt Shanahan moves back 1% in front. So as you can see it developing in front of your own eyes with the statistics, with everything that's happening around you, and obviously with our live stream facilities here on WLR as well, to see it all happening in front of your eyes, it's interesting because there's such a geographic spread in the sense that what might be the norm in St. Paul's, for argument's sake, up in Knockanore, you could see an entirely different picture. It's very, very interesting.
And just to put that point 100% to ram it home, as they say, Ballysaggart, the far side of the province, the far side of the planet in terms of St. Paul's. Mary Butler, 53 votes in one particular box there on that. And we had John Cummins, 13 votes. We had Conor McGuinness, 12 votes. Again, she got more than half the votes in that particular box.
Yeah, and if you look at the overall tally figures, Mary Butler polled extremely well by the looks of it in that Lismore, Cappoquin, those particular areas. Kind of rural West Waterford. She picked up a lot of the vote. I know a lot of the Sinn Féin vote was actually in Lismore as well. Conor McGuinness did quite well, as you mentioned that earlier. Donncha Mulcahy's vote from the local elections kind of held up firm there, and Conor McGuinness as well did quite well in the local elections in Dungarvan. So you're kind of seeing Fianna Fáil and Sinn Féin doing particularly well in West Waterford, but obviously, of course, Fine Gael picking up that as well. They had the Damien Gagan vote, Pat Nugent. They actually came quite close to even getting a third councillor at that time in Monica Murphy, so there's strong Fine Gael vote in that direction too. So it was quite tight in that sense, but Sinn Féin are very, very happy, I think, with what they've managed to achieve in West Waterford. But coming back to what yourself and Dymphna said a few moments ago, those 905 transfers from David Cullinan to Conor McGuinness, whether that's going to be enough, I think, is going to be the real question over what's left of the count.
What's your feeling now? Again, everybody's entitled to their opinion, so we had Dymphna telling us what she thought about it. What's your thoughts about it now?
I think so much will probably come down to where three different candidates' votes go, and those candidates are Ronan Cleary of AN2, Sive O'Neill of Labour, and Mary Roach of the Social Democrats. Because I suppose we've seen the narrative in the sense of vote left, transfer left. What way will that go? It's interesting to see what way that actually will happen, whether that's going to become a reality or not. Will those votes count? Will they not? I think Matt Shanahan is going to be the one that benefits in the case of those transfers, particularly from Mary Roach's vote, I believe. Labour's vote, Sive O'Neill's vote, how much of that comes back to Mary Roach and then eventually goes on again to Matt Shanahan. So I think Matt Shanahan maybe might have a sense of quiet confidence. For Conor McGuinness, he's definitely in a good position, but I just wonder if he is going to get those transfers, where exactly are they going to come from?
Well, it's better to have the scores on the board. It's better to have the win behind your back in the first half and have the ball in the net. He's got 1,200 of a lead on Matt Shanahan.
Yeah, I mean, it is quite a big lead, but then again, I suppose leads are there to be got at, aren't they?
Mac, they are.
Target on his back now.
I'll let you go. Jordan Norris, thank you very much for joining me. Really appreciate it. I'll let you go and get the food. So just to let you know that there's gourmet burgers have been delivered here to our special count centre. I'm on air now until 9 o'clock, and we don't ad break, so I can't eat anything. So they've done this on purpose, that they've actually brought in the food. And Dean is laughing there. Don't choke on that now, Dean. I bet you now. And Tim, enjoy that there. Now, have we got a certain number of correspondents there behind us? Are they coming in there in a second? They will. They'll be coming in now in a second. Now, I want to give a couple more of those tally sheets as we go through the different matters. The situation regarding I'll just give one more indication of where they came out from this morning. So again, a tally sheet, for example, Farron Shaneen in Ardkeen. We mentioned it in the last while. In one box, Mary Butler 26, David Cullinan 61. Then we had Cummins on 39 and Matt Shanahan on 36. And that was replicated in the other Farron Shaneen boxes. Now, Marion, I'll let you give that microphone there. Thank you very much. Marion has joined us on Peter Couch, our special Daysha Today couch. Hold that right up to you there, Marion.
Thank you.
Marion, good to see you. How are you getting on?
Oh, great. It's great to be here today. Always great to be at council elections.
You've covered and had covered for many, many decades with the News and Star, different counts, locals and nationals.
Yes.
For those that are not privileged enough to be here, so for example, party workers are here, some of them, and the media, we've covered it. Just talk to me about how important elections are for, I suppose, the body politic.
Well, we all get something from people who stand for election, and it's not an easy thing to do. It's very difficult, the results for some people. I've seen that over the years, and even today I'm sure there's plenty of disappointed people here as well.
You've been involved in many different events and the Older People's Council, and well done for all the work that you're doing. In the election campaign, do you think there was enough mention of issues that have been brought up regarding older people? For example, we had Bernadette Phillips on a number of years ago, God rest her soul now, and she would have been a campaigner for that. Mm-hmm. There are parties that would have specific policies. But how did you feel the election campaign went regarding we'd say, older people's matters?
I think generally speaking that there was very, very little said about older people, and the Waterford Older People's Council, we have been looking for a commissioner in the new government, whoever is going to make up the new government, to look after older people. Now, we've been lucky in the past, I suppose, in that we've had Mary Butler looking after older people and looking after mental health as a junior minister. So if, as it probably looks, that Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael are going to be in government together, maybe we could look at Mary Butler with a full-time job. I mean, a senior job.
There is talk about that, and again, it's one of the things that she would have said, that she has proven herself in the area of ministerial work that she has done, and she has worked very hard at that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously if John Cummins gets in, it's far too early to say, but again, he will be one of the most senior TDs in the South East for Fine Gael.
Absolutely, and it would be great if we could have two in a ministerial role representing Waterford.
Go from no full ministers to two would be something else, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and at least if we could get a commissioner for older people. I mean, we've already been hearing about pensions for retired people, and the pension would go up to maybe €350 a week, but that would be 5 years' time, and that's €12 in a budget that you would get every year, which is a bit of a cut.
What do you think of this election? How do you think it's going to go? The last seat between, we'd say, at the minute, Shanahan and McGuinness.
Oh my goodness. I think that we're all just going to be hanging to see how that's going to go, and if there isn't a result tonight, and it doesn't look like there will be, there'll be a lot of people who won't get sleep.
Exactly. Marion, thank you so much for talking to us. It's lovely to see you. I'll take that microphone from you, and God bless you. Thank you very, very much. Wonderful Marion O'Neill there joining us on the couch, having a chat about the election and also the importance, I suppose, of electoral politics. Now, Marion has just said something very important, and it looks like we're probably not going to get it finished tonight, which is maybe disappointing for certain candidates, because what happens in elections, and in particular when there's one party and one candidate, if somebody gets elected, again, they'll celebrate, they'll want to celebrate and they'll want to go home, and it makes the night easier and stuff like that instead of coming back tomorrow. But it's early days yet. We have a new returning officer. Her name is Michelle O'Connell, and she is at the minute, as I say, going through the third count. So we'll see what happens from that. But the way things are going, I'd say it's likely that she probably won't go through the night. Liam Brazel, Councillor Liam Brazel, joins me on the couch now. How are you, Liam?
Evening, Damien. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks very much for talking to us.
No problem yet. No problem yet. We had a long day. I was at the match in Cork today.
Just bring the mic up a little bit closer.
We're going to have a look. Classny lost the match in Cork today, so we're going to have to.
Yeah, unfortunately, it lost heavy enough. I think the other lads just got a good run at it, did they?
It was 3-12 to 1-7. Yeah, Cork got a goal in the last minute of the game, so that kind of took the sting out of it, you know. So the PT in the way, but look, that's the way it goes. Like, but we were so proud of them to get there. That's important for us.
They did marvellous. They did absolutely marvellous, didn't they?
Brilliant, yeah.
A great bunch of lads and a great committee and a great club.
Oh yeah, sure, they work very hard there, and the Classy club is a very progressive club there, as you all know. They look at the field they have there as second to none, and like all they need is a bit of success on the field. And like this year, probably ups and downs, but look, we were happy today. Like to go to Munster final, they're very happy, and like I'd be around the club a long time. I'm a treasurer there for the past 32 years, and like I was probably treasurer of the club there when a lot of them players they were born, and I know what it is like for us. Like we've competed in 3 Munster finals in that time there, and like when you get to a Munster final, like you're up against the best. And look, at Classny came away second best today.
Very much so, yeah. And hard luck to them, and best of luck to all of them in there, I suppose. They'll have a little celebration tonight, or a little drink just to relax.
Oh God, they will, and only for this I've been ticketed myself.
You might be there later. Firstly, as somebody who is heart and soul Fine Gael all your life, congratulations on your local election results. I spoke to you at the selection convention for John Cummins. I noticed it there that night, Liam, when you spoke to me that night as well about the unity in the party. I've said this consistently over the day, and Dimpna and others have said it as well. It's very noticeable how united Fine Gael are.
Fine Gael are a new family, and they're a very united family there. And like when John asked me to second the night of convention there, I was so happy and so proud. But I did say to John, no problem, John, if you want to get someone else there, I'm 100% behind you anyway. But John said, no, I said, I want you, Liam, to do it. And I was proud that night to be able to be asked, first of all, and second, to be able to do it for John. Because I knew John, he's young, he's hard-working, and he's ambitious. And I know he's going to go a long, long ways. And I'm so proud today, but I have no hesitation in saying, I knew from the canvas that John was going to win a seat. I was probably disappointed because I thought John was going to top the poll. I did go into the bookie after the night to back him to top the poll, and I thought that he would, because I knew the feedback on the door was fantastic. Like a lot of them are saying, a lot of yourselves are saying it, the media are saying it, that the negative campaign out there. We didn't see any negativity. I travelled from Tallow all the way down to First Passage, and in between, and Marie done as much as we could for John, and I didn't see any negativity. Every night we went out there and we looked for more and more, and the crowds were getting bigger every night. The last night we finished in Ballybricken there, I think John had about 35 with him there, and head off there and often their own knocking on doors, and it's the only way to win elections is knocking on doors. Look at, for me myself to win the election there last June, I don't do any social media, I don't do any papers, I don't do any media. But I knock on doors, and I believe if you knock on doors and ask the person, look at the person straight in the eye and ask them for the vote, and if they say they will, they will.
And if somebody gets onto you or rings you, you get back to them. And John Cummins has been very good at doing that as well, and he's got a very good team behind him, like yourselves in the council, and Shawnee Power and the others, and Lauren in the office. That's very important.
Like, it's our job as councillors to keep John on the right track, and we do that. Because, look, I'm in the council for 21 years now, and I know a lot of the running of the council, but when it goes to the big stuff, medical or things the way, I can ring up John, and John has come forward to me every time. And look, I always tell John, no matter what you'll do, always go back to the person. Because you can't, some people think you can move mountains, but you can't do that. But you can do your best. And I've always said to myself, if I feel my best is good enough, I'm happy then. And people can condemn you, and they will condemn you, because you're in that society at the moment now. People want it, and they want it now. But look we have to do our best for them, but you can't work miracles.
And that's very important, because you're honest with people, and you've been a very firm advocate for mental health issues, and there can be expectations on people that are way beyond what they can achieve, and they feel pressure, don't they?
They feel pressure, yes, they do. And like you mentioned mental health, it's a very tough subject to be involved in. And I'm involved in mental health for an awful long time there. And I know how to talk to people, and I know when not to talk to them. But the expectation out there today is something, it's gone beyond. It's gone beyond. Like look, I couldn't condemn the last government. I think they've done a fantastic job with what they had. They went through COVID. And you can say it like about COVID, up or down, but the people that survived COVID, it was an unknown at the time, and to survive that, and the help that they got from the government, and I knew, just because he's our leader now. Simon Harris done Trojan work. He came out every evening there on Twitter, and he spoke to the Irish people, young and old, and told them how to stay safe and keep safe, and everyone appreciated him for that.
Can I ask you, if you wouldn't mind, where do you think it's going to go now, the last seat? We've had views from everybody. I know it doesn't really matter from a Fine Gael perspective in some respect, but you know, and you're able to read the polls fairly well. What's your feeling on it?
My feeling is probably the same as it was yesterday and the day before. David Cullinane would probably top the poll if John didn't do it. John would come in a good strong second. Mary Butler, and a fight for the last seat, and it will be a dogfight between Conor and Matt, because I can see Conor's vote where's it going to come from?
Now he's 1,200 ahead of Matt.
Yeah.
That's a big, big lead.
Yeah. I've always said in politics, if you were 500 ahead, you'd be doing well. But I can see the transfers from Mark O'Carthy, Cleary Aintu, and Mary Roach. They're 3 city candidates. And their second vote won't go out the west. So
you could see this would be the greatest comeback in the history of comebacks if Matt Shanahan could close 1,200 of a gap.
Not really, no. Because you go back to the last election there, Mark Carthy, he was lying back a long ways at the time there.
He'd only 4,000 first preferences.
Yes, yeah. and John Cummins, if I'm not mistaken, he had about 4,800. Damien had about 4,000, and I think Matt had only something around the same thing again.
Yeah.
And the two of them went ahead of Fine Gael at the time.
Yeah, but he was very transfer friendly, O'Cosig, the last time. You were saying, obviously, Shanahan is very transfer friendly. Well, a lot more than McGuinness.
But a lot will depend on how John Cummins is going to do in the next 3 or 4 counts. Yes. If Mark goes out, and if John Cummins is still looking for his vote, that will lessen the vote for Mark.
Correct.
For Matt.
Absolutely, yeah. No, you're right there. And I said that earlier, the order of elimination is very important.
If John stays in the race longer, it'll be lesser for Matt, because Mark's one is the one they'll be going for. Yeah. Mary Roach's vote, I don't know where's it going to go. Yeah. Like, she gives the seat to Matt. Matt gave it back to her. So like Santi giving presents to children, and the children didn't want it, and they give it back again. That's the way the thing wasn't. So look at whether the relationship is still so strong, I don't know. But time will tell. We'll know tomorrow.
I'll shake your hand. Liam Brazel, Goravila Magot, Slonga Fall. Have a good day. Talk to you later. He doesn't mince the words. Donald Barry's going to sit down there, but in the meantime we're going to go to Jolene. Jolene is on the line, and Jolene is in Wexford. I'm going to just get our little headphones there again, and we'll see if we can talk to Jolene in Wexford with some of the Wexford count. Jolene, are you there?
Hello, Damien. I am indeed. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you very much. Good to hear from you. Thank you so much for joining us, Jolene Murphy.
Not at all.
Can you fill us in, please, if you wouldn't mind, Jolene, what's happening in Wexford in terms of the count?
I can indeed. So Wexford, of course, as you know, has been a supplement to the new constituencies. Wexford is now not just one, it is split into 2. So the boundary, if you know Wexford at all, it's Rosslare, Wexford Town, Gorey, or Enniscorthy, and then Gorey. So anywhere above Enniscorthy is now a part of a new constituency with South Wicklow. So North Wexford and South Wicklow are now the Wexford-Wicklow constituency.
I know, there's a lot of unhappy people up there about it, you know, but sure, listen, they'll have to get on with it now.
They have to get on with it. There has been a bit of comment about it already, because the Wexford-Wicklow constituency, the tally that was the latest tally shows that the 3 of the 3 seats that are to be won up there, they're actually mostly Wexford, from North Wexford. So we have first up there, so I'm just going to get it up there now. We have up in the Wexford-Wicklow, before we get to the main Wexford, we have... Get them all dotted in a line. Leading there is Brian Brennan from Fine Gael. We have Malcolm Byrne from Fianna Fáil and Fionn O'Sullivan from Sinn Féin. So they're the 3 leaders by a good margin up there in the latest tally. Their first count hasn't happened yet.
Okay.
So we're still keeping an eye on them there. But here in Wexford, just before 7 o'clock, the first official count was released. Okay. It's not a shock. Verona Murphy, independent, got back in. By a long shot on the first count, she had 11,340. I'm a Wexford woman myself. The 3 leaders from the first tally this afternoon at lunchtime were Verona, leading at around 20%, and that was followed by Johnny Mythen's Fianna Fáil's James Brown at 16%, and then Johnny Mythen of Sinn Féin. And not far behind for the 4th seat was George Lawler of Labour.
Okay,
Brendan Howland.
What's the quota in Wexford, please, Jolene?
It's 10,003.
Okay, so Verona Murphy has exceeded the quota, so she's been elected.
She has.
What was the first count? What was the first count for Brown, Mythen, and Lawler, please?
I'll tell you now. Let me get this lined up. So for Mythen, Johnny Mythen's first count in Sinn Féin was 7,633, and that was technically third. So up in second, we have James Brown, Fianna Fáil, 8,596.
Okay.
So there's obviously still surplus to go, but for now, we're not sure when our next count is. Rumours can have it as much as we want, but we will be waiting here, if not until tomorrow.
And what was Lawler's vote, if you don't mind, first preference?
So George Lawler, we have him not far behind Sinn Féin, coming in a fourth, also in the 7,000s, at 7,228.
Okay.
Now, George was here earlier and he spoke to us just after the first tally, but he had to leave to go turn on the Wexford Christmas lights in Wexford town. As Mayor of Wexford, he has his duties, but he's back on site again.
Pity it wasn't last night. He might have
confident.
got a few more votes out of it. He was probably thinking, he probably tried to arrange the lights in another night. You're live on our stream as well, so if anybody's on Facebook or YouTube or any of the social media channels, you can see Jolene, and she's actually in a gymnasium at the minute. I don't know if you've been using any of the equipment there, Jolene, have you?
No, not yet. Maybe tomorrow to try and keep our spirits up on a long count, but not at the moment. So we're in the Loretto Secondary School here in Wexford town. We're on a balcony. It's a closed balcony. We can overlook the town centre. It's very exciting, running up and down the stairs, but we are, yes, technically in a gymnasium.
There's no lads using the gym behind you there as you're talking. No, you're grand. It's
not
okay.
yet, surprisingly.
They might. They'll be there in a while. Very finely, briefly, if you don't mind. What did Mick Wallace get in first preference, please?
Oh, I'll tell you now. So Mick Wallace was just over the 1,000 mark. He was in
Only
at 1,615. Yeah, so it was a bit of shock.
Disaster.
He was a late runner here in Wexford to join it, but there was a few prizes and not surprises. With Michael Sheehan of New Ross going independent, Michelle O'Neill was drafted in for Fine Gael. Her figure came in at 296. So that was a bit of a shock there. And Michael Sheehan himself for independent was 1,623 so far.
Jolene, have a good evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Damien.
Mind yourself, all the very best, and take care with those barbells and all that sort of stuff. Now, so the latest from Wexford, Verona Murphy has been elected. Looks like James Brown, in terms of Fianna Fáil, will get in. Then it looks like we will see probably Johnny Myden get in from Sinn Féin. And yeah, I'd say it'll be a toss-up then between whether Labour get in. That's the Brendan Howland vote. And Brendan, I was talking to him last week, he was actually quite confident that George Lawler would get in. Joining me now on Peter Couch is Donald Barry, Independent Councillor in Waterford. We've got around 8 or 9 minutes for a chat, Donald. Firstly, how are you?
Thank you, Damien. Not bad. And congratulations to WLR for the coverage. I was listening to it just coming back out in the car there. It's great to have such a service.
Very welcome. Not at all. It's great. And again, so many people involved in all of this. I want to say a special mention to David as well, who came in on the cameras this afternoon and this evening. He's been doing some great stuff. And it's a team effort. It really is. It's working great, and with Setu as well. You have been campaigning for Matt Shanahan, correct?
No, I wasn't out knocking on doors. But anyone asked me who would they vote for, I said vote for Matt Shanahan, but I didn't get out knocking on doors.
Okay. Any reason why?
Was too busy.
Simple as that.
Simple as that. I mean,
in terms of how this is panning out, what's your thoughts?
My thoughts, look, I thought Conor McGuinness would have got more votes in the West. I'd say he's a little bit disappointed himself there. They may have managed their votes a little bit better. But he's still, I think, is 1,267 ahead, which is a good bit ahead. But the candidates that are to go out, that you will think will go out, you would hope that they would favour Matt. They're all kind of city-based candidates, and down here in the east, so you'd be hoping the vote would stay there.
Well, you'd be hoping for it.
Yeah, well, yeah,
generally,
and Matt.
I know,
yeah.
1,200 is a big ask. Again, we did a good discussion with Dimpna and Jordan about this, and Liam Brazel, as you heard him say, about Santa and other stuff. It's a big gap, but you think it is possible to make up that gap. That's what Dimpna was saying.
I think Matt should do okay from N2, and then from you're going to have the Labour Party, Mark Cosick, and then Mary Roach, I think, will be the big one. And I think he's getting about 30% of them, looking at him from Mary Roach, seconds.
You've been able to see that, have you?
Just looking at some of them there that were up on the desk earlier on.
Right, okay. Did you think Matt Shanahan would poll better than he has polled, or what did you think about Matt Shanahan's first preference?
in fairness to Matt, I wouldn't agree with him on a lot of things, but I think he's actually an excellent candidate that we have in Dáil Éireann representing us. And as I said, I don't agree with him with everything he done and backing the government on certain votes. But he's a good man to have in the Dáil. You know, I did think as an incumbent he would have been a little bit better. That would be my take on it. I thought he'd be a little bit higher on the first preferences.
And did you think the airport issue affected different candidates in different ways?
Look, the airport thing to me is as soon as this election is over, it has to be a decision made on the airport. As a councillor, I haven't seen the business case. I must be one of the only people haven't seen it. But what I'm hearing is it wasn't a great business case that was put forward, and if that is the case, we have to be realistic and say, hey lads, you better get your act together and put a better business case together, or we lose this.
And they would say it was a grand business case. They answered all the questions, and they believe that there was kind of a reluctance to go forward in certain directions. So we'll see what happens with that. In terms of the Sinn Féin vote and David Cullinane, and a very high percentage as well for Conor McGuinness. Very strong Sinn Féin solidifying this. Like, this is going on now for the last 20 years, you could say.
Yeah, but I think they're actually down on David's performance
very
last
slightly,
time.
Very
slightly, yeah. Again, look, it appears they will be in opposition. How long people will keep voting for them when they're in opposition, it remains to be seen too, if something new don't come on the scene to replace them.
And that's one of the issues that happens, and I mentioned that with somebody earlier on. Those, not only for the party workers that are going out, and if somebody's in opposition, but also, as you say, for people that are voting, because the likelihood, like, what do you think would the likelihood be of the next government?
I think the likelihood of it, listen to the mood music and just watching on the TV coming out, it'll be Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, and they will try and maybe pull in either Labour or Social Democrats with them, maybe a few independents. You know, but you want to be a brave man to go in there with them.
Because they could gobble you up?
Oh, you'd be gobbled up with them fairly easily. Like, they promise you the sun, moon and stars to get your support, and they'd throw you under the bus straight away. You know,
what do you think of the Greens? And it's sad to see anybody lose their seat. Mark O'Causey, a nice chap.
Yeah, look, Mark is a gentleman, there's no doubt about that. But the Greens, I have no love for them in that way. We're all, like, I go out and do a bit of environmental work every week, but down the St. John's River walk, but we don't have it stamped on our forehead, like, you know, or we don't go around pushing it down people's throats. I think there's a way of going it. Every party now, bar none, will tell you they're all green credentials, you know, but I think they woke up too late to the airport issue.
Good point.
You know.
Donald Barry, I'll let you go. Listen, thanks so much for talking to me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Shake hands there now, and have a good evening, and God bless. Thank you very much. Now, we've only a couple of minutes left from a special broadcast here. I'm going to ask Jennifer to sit down on the couch here beside me. Jennifer, thank you very much. Jennifer Long, our producer. She's looking at me now. She's going, oh no, I didn't want to be asked to do this. We only got 2 minutes left.
Yep.
Dimna, you've been covering a lot of elections yourself as well with the News
and
Sorry, Dimna, because I'm thinking of Dimna, the News and Star, Jennifer with the News and Star. You've been covering a lot of elections yourself. It is a special day, isn't it?
It's unreal, Damien, like the buzz of it, like for us, but also obviously for the people behind the scenes that that support the candidates. Everybody really. There's a great buzz about it. We don't feel the hours pass by. Time just flies from one hour to another. So yeah, it's a special day. It really is.
The big thing is, there any food left for me now at the end of this broadcast?
There's a small bag of chips there and a cheeseburger. So
okay, thank you for
there you go. You've been officially presented with the burger there by Michael Byrne, CEO. So
yeah. In terms of the election and the results, a lot of it's gone according to plan.
Yeah.
I know we've all made little internal predictions ourselves. You're not too surprised the way things have gone at the minute?
I'm not hugely surprised. I think most people are not really surprised, to be quite honest about it. We all knew David Cullinane was a hugely strong contender again this time out. John Cummins, of course, huge momentum behind him, not just in the past few weeks, to be fair, but in the months, in the past year. He's been campaigning for a good 2.5 years at this stage, I think. Mary, of course, I think was going to do well with the West and everything as well. And I think we all guessed Shanahan and McGuinness for the last seat, and that's how it's playing out.
1,200 of a gap between McGuinness and Shanahan at present. What do you think?
I I would call it Shanahan.
Would you?
I would.
You think he's...
I think it's the way the transfers... Look, the transfers,
Yeah.
you know, they're usually unpredictable, but I think with the way it's rolling, I think that's how I would see it. But it's so close, like, you know, for any of us to call. But, yeah, that's how I would think. Yeah,
okay.
that's what I would think.
Yeah, again, all those are going to become transparent in the next few hours.
Absolutely, yeah.
Thanks, everybody, for all your help in terms of this broadcast. Jennifer, thank you for producing.
Damien.
It's a great team behind us, isn't there?
Absolutely fantastic. You wouldn't get it anywhere. And, I mean, you've called out everybody there. Keane and Dean have been fantastic. All the lads in news. It's a great team effort. It's lovely for us to be able to bring this service, I think, to people. I know the numbers watching online, listening in all day have been fantastic. So, I mean, thanks to everybody for tuning in and putting your trust in us for the coverage today as well, I think.
Absolutely, very well said. Special mention to Michael Byrne as well. I know he's our boss, not just saying it because he's here.
Yeah.
Everybody is full of praise for Michael and the way he's handled things.
And he's steered the team.
And as well, allowed people to set up their stuff and get things going and encouraged it as well.
Absolutely.
And so there's that freedom to do that, but that support as well.
It comes from the top, in
Yeah,
fairness, and that's very evident with Michael. So huge thanks to Michael for everything he's done.
Want to say a special mention to Ray and others that were back at base, to Paula during the last few days in terms of digital. Ray as well on Digi. Had to pay a special mention to Paula's sister who lives on the Cork Road as well. I think they've gone to Kilkenny today. And thanks everybody for listening on to this Daysha Today special. Our news team are going to be continuing for the next few hours until 10:30 at least, because it looks like they will continue till at least 10:30. So Dimphna's going to have the news now in a minute, and Jordan as well. I want to say thanks very much to Dean, to Keane, to Michael, to Jennifer, everybody involved, to David. Have a great evening, folks, and stay with us here for all the very, very latest in the next few hours in terms of the results and the announcements, and we might see you and talk to you again tomorrow morning. Thank you.
Across Waterford, on mobile and the smart speaker, this is Waterford's WLR.
WLR News at 9. Good evening, I'm Kyle Butler. 12 TDs have been elected to the 34th Dáil as counting continues across the country. Sinn Féin currently have the highest number of seats with 6. However, there's still a long way to go. Sinn Féin's David Cullinane has been re-elected to the Dáil and retains his seat in Waterford. We're going to cross live now to our WLR News and Current Affairs team on the Cork Road at SETU. I'm joined now by Jordan Norris and Dimphna Nugent. Guys, are we getting close to a second count result?
We have the second count result, Kyle, that came in on our last broadcast on Daysha Today between 8 and 9. So we're currently awaiting count 3, and that is the redistribution of Aaron Joyce and Mark O'Neill's votes. So Aaron Joyce and Mark O'Neill have been eliminated. No candidate reached the quota after the second count. But Dimphna, you might just run over where the numbers lie after that second count.
I will indeed, Jordan. After that second count, Mary Butler is sitting there at 10,004 votes. So she's still just shy of that 10,731 quota. Ronan Cleary, 1,680. So he went up by just under 20 votes there. Frank Conway, 722. John Cummins, 10,428. It is so close he could touch it, but it wasn't to happen in the second count. Conor McGuinness, 6,692. There was a nice bump there from the distribution of David Cullinane's surplus. Still not enough for him to be guaranteed of that fourth seat. Aaron Joyce, as we said, 164. His votes are now to be redistributed following his elimination. Killian Mangan, 627 votes, up 7. Mark O'Cahosig, 1,683. Mark O'Neill went up by 1 vote. He sits at 57, but unfortunately he was also eliminated and his 57 votes are to be redistributed. Sive O'Neill went up 18 votes to 1,518. Mary Roach up 48 to 2,765. Independents Matt Shanahan up 70 to 5,425. And Irish People's John D. Walsh up 3 to 485. We're still not within reach of that quota yet, Jordan.
We're not, Dimphna, because there's 221 votes being redistributed right now for the third count. John Cummins is 303 off the quota, and Mary Butler is 727 off the quota. Both candidates seem fairly assured of their seats. It is a matter of time for them and their teams, but not just yet. There are going to be a couple of counts this evening. I've been told by the stewards that they've already been given advice to return for 9 a.m. tomorrow morning, so we don't quite know how long we're going to run for here this evening, but it'll be interesting to see what develops over the course of the next few days. Are they going to stay on until those 2 seats are filled tonight and come back for the dogfight in terms of transfers tomorrow? between Matt Shanahan and Conor McGuinness.
It's an interesting one. I was looking there. I believe it's the Fingal region in Dublin has actually been suspended for this evening, so they've stopped counting votes. It's an unusual one because if you remember back to 2020, I think it was close to 4 a.m. when Marco Kohasik claimed that final seat. So we did keep going until the bitter end, and I think that's what many people expected this evening. But there may be a lot of people who are glad of a fresh head and a fresh start tomorrow morning to get a couple of hours and to get it all finished off.
I think it's interesting when you look at the figures after the second count. If now obviously Marco Kohasik, a sitting Green TD, there's no point in beating around it. Today has been a disastrous day for the Green Party. Just 5 votes between him and Ronan Cleary of Aontú when you look at the second count there. And I've just seen that junior ministers Joe O'Brien and Ossian Smith, they've lost their seats as well for the Green Party today. So on a national picture, it's been a disastrous day for them.
They have been absolutely decimated, and I don't use that term lightly. And we're seeing the rise of the popularity of parties like the Social Democrats, the Labour Party. They're really recording their best performances in quite a long time, and it can't be ignored that is because those who may have voted Green in the last general election have now decided they want an alternative, and maybe that's not the main parties. Maybe that is the likes of the Social Democrats, maybe that is the likes of Labour. So it really is anyone's game when you're looking at not even that 4th seat, because I think that really only comes down to 2 candidates. But when you're looking even ahead to the next general election, it's a completely different political landscape now.
It definitely is. And looking at what will happen after that third count, what we imagine will happen will then be that the votes of John D. Walsh of the Irish People as it stands will then be redistributed for count 4. But unfortunately at the moment, Kyle, we are still some way off to seeing the second TD elected for Waterford. But the minute it does happen, WLR is the first place that you will see it happening. We are still continuing broadcasting on our stream and on air throughout the course of the evening. And until we are asked to leave the count centre here on the Cork Road, we will be staying here with our feet firmly on the ground.
Certainly so. Thank you, Jordan and Dimphna. Meanwhile, counting continues across the country. Sean Defoe reports on the national picture.
Some big elections in the last hour, including that of Mary Lou McDonald in Dublin Central. Sinn Féin also getting good news in Waterford, where they're now on to take 2.
And you're very welcome back to our live stream here at the SETU Count Centre. We are awaiting another result, the third count. But of course, there's lots of activity here. We've been bringing our live stream to you from our studio in collaboration with WLR and SETU. But here in the Count Centre itself, lots of activity. Lots of people have arrived who haven't been here all day. And there are many people who have been here all day. And two of those are Carmel Power, canvassing for Fianna Fáil's Mary Butler, and Terry Hayes, canvassing for Fine Gael's John Commons. Both stalwarts on the canvassing scene. Carmel, how has the overall experience been for you? I accompanied Mary on a canvass in Dungarvan a couple of weeks ago. You were part of that as well. You said you were getting a very positive reaction on the doorsteps.
Very positive, very warm. People were very accepting, and they accepted that she was a hard worker. And, you know, they promised we'll either give her one or two. So it was great. You know, it was fast and furious. Every day was a different area. And Sean Dower was coordinating the city, and we did the west. So, like, it's a long distance from Glendyne, from Knockanore, all the ways to Passage. You know, it's a big area to cover. But, you know, every day, 21 days, and we got there. Yeah.
And of course, Carmel, you're familiar with meeting so many members of the public through your work in Mary's constituency office. That really allows you to hear the concerns of people.
Yes, I'm with Mary since 2018 in the Dungarvan office. We're open 5 days a week, and it's a very busy office. A lot of older people, housing adaptations, housing, or, you know, small minor things, and maybe medical cards, hospital appointments. It's very varied, you know. But there's never any day, 2 days the same. So
that's what keeps it interesting, isn't it? The work and even out and about.
Yeah, it's a lovely job. You know, I like people. I'm a people person. I always worked with people, and Mary's a great boss. You know, we have a great rapport, and we have Jason, the city office, and Jane, and we have Lawrence, her PA. So there's 4 of us. You know, and it's great. We're employed again. You know.
A real team effort, and that's something which is really striking from all of the candidates, is the team effort which it takes to actually run a campaign, because we have the candidates front and centre here today, but it is of course all of the people in the background who support them, and one of those who has been working with John Commons is Terry Hayes. And Terry, it's clear to see that there's great camaraderie amongst all of the canvassers when they're out and about.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been on a trail with John now for several months, and you know, you go out on a daily basis or on a nightly basis, and there's a great social aspect to it as well, and the group of people that you have with you. It's certainly the great team spirit there, because everyone is on the same agenda, the same goal to get John elected, and you're with different people every night, but you're supporting each other, you're gelling with different people, and I've found the last few months extremely rewarding personally, and the end results will be there hopefully tonight or tomorrow.
And again, similar to Mary, John had a very impressive campaign, seemed to cover the length and breadth of County Waterford.
Yeah, we had big numbers out. You know, I suppose there was nights I was on the campaign trail and there was 18 and 20 people, and it was, I think I used the word, it was like a pincer movement that we just covered areas, and when you have 2 or 3 people or 4 people going up a road together, you just move, and people help each other along the way and support each other. And you know, you meet with different constituents, and they might have different issues, but again, it's about linking in with people and frankly listening to people.
So you're waiting for both of your candidates now to get over the line. How are the nerves? How are you feeling?
No, look, I think they're there. They are both there, so you know, it's just get them there now and get home and get somewhere.
Getting a signed, sealed, and delivered. Yeah. Well, Carmel and Terry, thank you both very much, and well done on all of your work throughout the campaign. So we'll bring you the very latest as we get it live from the floor here in the Count Centre.
is WLR, your election station.
Good evening, I'm Kyle Butler. Counting continues across the country this evening for the general election. Sinn Féin currently have the highest number of seats. However, there is still a long way to go. Sinn Féin's David Cullinane has been re-elected to the Dáil and retains his seat in Waterford. We're going to cross live now to our WLR News and Current Affairs team on the Cork Road at SETU. And I'm joined now by Jordan Norris. Jordan, a very good evening to you.
A very good evening, Kyle, and I believe our news editor Kieran Foley is standing by with Waterford Independent TD Matt Shanahan. Kieran.
Yes, thank you, Jordan. I'm joined by Waterford Independent TD Matt Shanahan, who of course is in contention for a seat here once again. Matt, the results of the first count have you on 5,355 first preference votes. Following the second count, 5,425. What's your reaction to those results?
Well, look, I suppose at the end of the day, all election results are in the gift of the people. I can only talk about what we did. We put in a very significant canvass. We organised very well. We canvassed every single door. We spoke to every person behind the door. We didn't just leaflet drop. I would have expected probably a higher performance than what we got. So that's a bit disappointing. But at the end of the day, this is democracy. The people decide. The people look at the issues and they make the decision. And I respect that decision, whatever it is.
And are you hopeful of picking up transfers as counts go on further?
Well, of course I'm hopeful, but hopeful and how would I say? I don't have control of that. It's again, it's down to the way people have voted. I have no understanding. I doubt anybody here can say they have a clear understanding until we see where the numbers go. But the gap is significant now at this stage. It'll be difficult to close.
And of course, you did make the headlines this week, the incident involving UHW and your campaign. Do you feel this has impacted on your result?
I'm not too sure. Look, I put out a statement. I think what's important though to note, and on that subject, okay, the hospital has always been the battleground, particularly of my campaign. That's the first thing. And the second thing I'd say, it's a pity that the political parties who contributed to the pylon aren't so disgusted when they see people being carted off down to Cork awaiting PCI, or when they see stroke victims when only 3 out of 4 can get access to the stroke unit, or when people with children with mental illness can't get into the DOP there. That outrage isn't being expressed, and yet they were outraged by a light up on a wall. But look, we've drawn a light under that. These things happen. It's rare in any campaign that you make any misstep, and of course we've made missteps along the way. We've done other things very well, but at the end of the day, that was done politically to highlight University Hospital Waterford, and it is significant that we're now challenging, a party is challenging for 2 seats here which doesn't even have Waterford in its manifesto, let alone Waterford Hospital.
And on that point, the hospital, I spoke with Willie Doyle earlier of the 24/7 Cardiac Care for Waterford and the South East campaign group, a campaigner for over 10 years on this matter. You made this very much an issue going into the 2020 general election, but I suppose the fact of the matter is we still haven't pursued the end goal. So what is it actually going to take on your part, on the part of all of the political representatives, to get this over the line?
Well, firstly, I think people need to look at the numbers, and they need to look at what's going on in the background. So just to, I suppose, synopsise it, the second cath lab took 3.5 years to put into University Hospital Waterford. The exact same cath lab went into UPMC in 3 months and was in operation. So it wasn't about the difficulty of commissioning a lab, and then it became about the recruitment of staff. And the recruitment of staff, which were all supposedly emergency appointments, were then put into a HSE embargo and held up for 8 months. And in fact, we had 2 key positions of people who were ready to go into UHW to take up a contract when that embargo was listed. And those 2 specialties took jobs elsewhere, and now they are part of the reason we don't have the 7-day service. So people need to look and ask the question, what is the clinical standard for heart attack in the country? We know what it is. It's access to a cath lab within 90 minutes of the onset of pain. That is the ideal. And in this region, we're the only region where that standard does not apply. And we need to have a round-the-clock service. We have the same physiology as everybody else, but government and even Fianna Fáil made the commitment before. Fine Gael are now making it again with Mr. Cummins. And the question is, what is going to deliver it? I don't know. But what I can tell you is this, until we have that service, we will not have a clinical standard that compares with the other regions of the country.
So as I mentioned, we're looking at a real slog between yourself and the Sinn Féin candidate Conor McGuinness for the 4th seat. What benefit would it be to Waterford of having an independent TD again as opposed to having 2 Sinn Féin TDs?
Well, as I said to you, the 2 Sinn Féin reps at the moment have been going around making copious promises with respect to the hospital, particularly with respect to Waterford Airport. It's not in the Sinn Féin manifesto, and that will form the basis of the programme for government. They may have it in their mind that they want to deliver that, but saying that, that their party leader is committed to it, why is it not in the manifesto? That's where you'd expect to see it. So the problem that we've had down here for years is that once party reps end up in government formation or in the opposition, they have to do what head office says, and it's very, very difficult to step out of line, and that's what an independent does. An independent can stand up and call it. And it's interesting, Kieran, if you look at the poster boards that were produced in the last couple of weeks, what was on them? 24/7, Waterford Airport, South East Technological University. They are all the issues that I have been banging on about since I went in 2020, and I made all those issues the key fighting points of this election in Waterford. And the question now is, are these parties, after this today and tomorrow is finished, are the parties who are forming government and forming the next Dáil, are they going to stand by those promises? Are we going to yet again see things being whittled away? And I think without an independent voice there to call that out, there's a great danger that could happen.
Okay, independent TD Matt Shanahan, thank you for joining us on WLR, and of course we'll bring you the very latest updates as they happen live from the Count Centre floor.
Thanks very much for that, Kieran. Dymphlin Nugent, I suppose a quite staunch defiance of that incident during the week from Matt Shanahan there.
I think he might live to regret those words. These things happen. I think there's going to be, at last count there was 2,000 people or thereabouts watching on the live stream. I don't think that was a strong enough answer. I absolutely take on board that there was in fact a pile-on of Matt Shanahan, and I know that maybe that was part of the reason why he didn't come on Daisha today. Earlier in the week I know he had released a statement explaining why he had done what he did, but to say there to Kieran, these things happen, I don't think that's going to be a good enough answer for many voters.
Well, I suppose it remains to be seen in what happens, whether or not the 4th seat goes his direction. At the moment, Kyle, we are currently awaiting on count number 3 the redistribution of the eliminated candidates, Aaron Joyce and Mark O'Neill, 221 votes to be redistributed. Until then, back to you in studio.
Thank you very much. And that's the latest. For all your Waterford general election news this weekend, keep up to date on air and on our live stream service on WLRFM.com.
The following is the result of the third count, which consisted of the distribution of Aaron Joyce's 164 votes and Mark O'Neill's 57 votes. Total of votes distributed, 221 votes. Butler Mary Fianna Fáil, votes this count 7, total votes 10,011, 10011. Cleary Dr. Ronan Aintu, votes this count 13, total votes 1693, 1,693. Conway Frank, non-party, votes this count 49, total votes 771, 771. Cummins John, Fine Gael, votes this count 4, total votes 10,432, 10432. Curtin Patrick, People Before Profit, Solidarity, votes this count 3, total votes 672, 672. Conor D. McGuinness, Sinn Féin, votes this count 24, total votes 6,716, 6716. Mangan Killian, non-party, votes this count 41, total votes 668, 668. Mark O'Cossie, Green Party, votes this count 3, total votes 1,686, 1686. Sive O'Neill, the Labour Party, votes this count 7, total votes 1,525, 1525. Roach Mary, Social Democrats, votes this count 5, total votes 2,770, 2770. Shanahan Matt, non-party, votes this count 18, total votes 5,443, 5443. Walsh John D., the Irish People, votes this count 29, total votes 514. Non-transferables papers non-effective 18, total votes 18. As there is no surplus for distribution, I will now exclude the lowest candidate and distribute his votes. John D. Walsh, 514 votes, 514 votes.
As mentioned there, the third count has just proceeded there, and we have seen John D. Walsh eliminated, so his 514 votes will be redistributed for count 4. I'm joined now by Dimphna Nugent. Dimphna, as we knew there, the 221 votes belonging to Aaron Joyce and Mark O'Neill were going to be redistributed. John Cummins was the nearest candidate, but he was still 303 off the quota, so we knew that nobody was going to be elected on that count, but now we see John D. Walsh of the Irish People's votes being redistributed, so we're moving somewhat closer, I suppose, to that second seat being filled.
We are indeed. I think there's going to be a lot happening now when we get to the fourth count. I do believe that's when we're going to see a little bit of action around John Cummins. I think it's fair to say that. I also think it's quite likely that perhaps in the next count we might see Killian Mangan also eliminated, but again, that remains to be seen.
It does remain to be seen. So just to go back over the figures after that count, so Fianna Fáil's Mary Butler is on 10,011, up 7 on that count. A&2's Ronan Cleary, 1,693, up 13. Frank Conway, Independent, 771, up 49. David Cullinan, of course, already elected. John Cummins, 10,432, up 4, still 299 off the quota, 10,731. Patrick Curtin of People Before Profit Solidarity, up 3 to 672. Conor McGuinness up to 6,716, up 24. Killian Mangan up to 668. Mark O'Cossie, Green Party, up 3 to 1,686. Sive O'Neill of Labour up 7 to 1,525. Mary Roach of the Social Democrats up 5 to 2,770. Matt Shanahan up to 5,443, up 18. John D. Walsh went up to 514 with a further 28 votes, but he has the lowest of the candidates remaining, so his 514 votes will be redistributed. Dimphna, at this point, Conor McGuinness holds a lead of roughly around 1,200 votes ahead of Matt Shanahan. I suppose that is kind of what we are keeping an eye on in terms of what might happen tomorrow. Maybe that's probably what's going to be the most likeliest course of action at this stage. 1,200 votes ahead. it's a healthy lead, but it's actually very, very easy to see how easy that can be eaten into.
It is. I just literally did the maths as you were talking there. 1,273 votes is all that separates Conor McGuinness and Matt Shanahan. It's a healthy lead in terms of anything over 500 or anything over 1,000. We sort of say, OK, you have it in the bag. Not very much the case here, because we don't know what's going to happen to Sive O'Neill's votes when she's eventually eliminated. We don't know what's going to happen to Mary Roach's votes. We don't know what will happen to Marco Cahasig's. Realistically, quite a lot of those votes, given the way people voting and the trends that are there, we do expect a lot of those votes to be transferred to Matt Shanahan.
Exactly. I think a lot will probably come down to, you look at the transfers coming from Ronan Cleary of Aon to Sive O'Neill of Labour, as you mentioned there, and potentially Mary Roach of the Social Democrats. She's on 2,770 at the moment. It looks as if maybe she might not have enough to be involved in that fight for that fourth seat. So I think those transfers from maybe those three candidates in particular are where the lie of the land is going to be tomorrow.
I think so. And I think if this general election is teaching us anything, it's that the landscape politically in Ireland really has changed. In 2020, we wouldn't have considered the Social Democrats to be a main contender. Now, realistically, with a few more votes, really, Mary could have been in contention for that fourth seat. You know, that was a very real possibility. I think she herself is now accepting that that's not going to happen, but she put up a fine fight.
Absolutely. For those of our listeners and those on our live stream that are just joining us, Dimfna, our news editor Kieran Foley just spoke with independent TD Matt Shanahan, and obviously there's been a lot of controversy surrounding the laser beam display vote Shanahan on the side of the Dunmore wing at University Hospital Waterford earlier this week. There's been a case of a lot of contention. The answer that was given in that respect, the line that sticks out, I suppose, was that these things happen.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a lot of people that might be tuning in tonight that, you know, those three words might ring quite hollow.
I think that Matt, and I admire Matt politically, I think he fights very hard on a national level for Waterford. He has always fought to achieve what we have not managed to achieve in Waterford, which is 24/7 cardiac care. But I think that to make the hospital building itself your political billboard, I think that he will live to regret this if he hasn't already. And I think when we saw on Matt Shanahan's social media page, we did see initially, when he realised the backlash that was there, an explanation post. I won't call it an apology post because it certainly wasn't. And he made reference to the fact that in using this light installation, it was economically friendly. It wasn't a billboard, that many politicians have used similar things over the years. And by the following day, you can see that he obviously had advice from somebody, because an apology was then issued. We didn't see any evidence of that apology this evening when he was speaking to Kieran. He simply said that perhaps it may have hurt his chances this evening, perhaps it lost him votes, but that these things happen, and he only wishes that the political parties who were so irate over his decision to do so were as irate about the volume of patients who travel from Waterford to Cork in the event of a cardiac emergency. I understand his point, but I certainly don't think it will have allayed the fears or the frustrations of many Waterford voters who were very unhappy with what he had done.
Absolutely, and I think in his address to Kieran there, Matt took particular aim at David Cullinan and Conor McGuinness, the two Sinn Féin candidates. Of course, David Cullinan already elected, and Conor McGuinness likely to be the person that is going to put it up to Matt in terms of the battle for that fourth seat. And he kind of dug out their manifesto in particular in terms of references to Waterford Airport, 24/7 cardiac care, the South East Technological University. So it seemed to be quite pointed criticism in that respect.
It was, and I think that at a time like this, all politicians will point at one another and say, look, I was the ideal candidate, but the voting is now done. You cannot change what's on the ballot papers. You must simply get through it as amicably as possible. But I think Matt, now more than ever, for his voters who have voted for him or the voters that he has lost, I do think he needs to actually speak to media, whether it's ourselves or somebody else, and he has to actually give a proper apology or explanation for what he did. I don't think it's the right time to take aim at other political parties. I think you need to own that what you did was probably a really serious and potentially costly error of judgment.
Well, whether it proves costly or not remains to be seen. Just to recap for our listeners, we are currently awaiting count number 4. That is the redistribution of the 514 votes that went to John D. Walsh of the Irish People. He is the latest candidate to be eliminated. So Aaron Joyce, Mark O'Neill and John D. Walsh have been eliminated. David Cullinan of Sinn Féin has been elected. and there are still 3 seats left to be filled. John Cummins of Fine Gael, 299 seats off the quota, and Mary Butler of Fianna Fáil, 720 seats off the quota. As mentioned, it is going to be a dogfight, it seems, between Matt Shanahan and Conor McGuinness for that 4th seat at the moment. But until then, we will leave it for now, and we will go back for another update at 10 o'clock.
Okay, you're very welcome back to the floor here at the Count Centre, and there's been lots of activity all day, and one man who has been here all day is Sean Dower. And Sean, you are representing Minister Mary Butler, the Fianna Fáil candidate, in discussions which are taking place here with the returning officer and officials, and I believe you have an update for us on what's actually happening.
We're due to have an update very, very shortly, but the latest news we have is that at about 8:45, John Fitzpatrick, representing John Cummins, and myself, representing Minister Butler, went to see the returning officer and our staff, asking that they not finish too early this evening, that at least elect the 2nd and the 3rd seats, fill those 2 seats, and then let them come back tomorrow for the last seat. Because of the gap between the 3rd candidate and the 4th candidate, they undertook what we were saying, said that they would meet us again at 10 o'clock. So we expect to meet them very shortly now to see what their decision on it is. But we would be hopeful that they will continue for a little while longer.
And of course, you've attended many general elections over the years. Would that be normal practice if 2 candidates were close to being elected, that it would be left run on, and if requests were made from the candidates?
I can't recall an incident similar to this, so therefore I can't give you a definitive answer to it. But yes, I've been at lots of counts where we finished very early in the morning, lots of counts where there was an adjournment and you came back the following day. But I think this is a little bit unusual that 2 candidates are very close to being elected. I think John is about 300 shy, I think Mary's about 600 shy. And the gap between them and the next candidate is about 4,500. So for that reason, both candidates would like to continue, and John, as John Cummins' representative, and myself as Mary's representative, went to see them to discuss it. And I'd say we're close to getting a decision, I believe.
So just to recap, the quota here is 10,731. Fianna Fáil's Mary Butler, she's on 10,011, and Fine Gael's John Cummins, 10,432. So how do you see it playing out then, Sean, in terms of that 2nd seat?
I would think John would probably be the favourite for the 2nd seat, Mary for the 3rd seat, and then between Conor McGuinness and Matt Shanahan tomorrow. Well, whichever way it goes tonight, it's going to be tomorrow anyway for the 4th seat to be filled.
So we're looking at the moment, after count 3, Conor is on 6,716, Matt Shanahan 5,443. So transfers and geography is going to play a key factor as well.
That's going to be a huge factor to it. Personally, I think the gap between the 2 is too big to be reduced. I think Matt would really need to be getting all of Mary Roach's votes when she's eliminated, Marco Kohasig's, Sive O'Neill's, and I think the likelihood of getting 90% of those even is slim. So I would have to say that I would think Conor McGuinness is the favourite to take the 4th seat.
Well, of course, this was Marco Kohasik, Butlerstown man, Matt Shanahan, Butlerstown, Mary Roach, a close connection. Matt Shanahan was co-opted in place of Mary Roach in the council. So I mean, I suppose there are glimmers of hope there for Matt Shanahan.
There would be glimmers of hope, but tallying this morning, I wouldn't say that there was a 60% even transfer. You know, the transfers were going all over the place. Where Mary Roach, I think, and Sive O'Neill, because they were both very, very close together, side by side on the ballot paper, they seem to be transferring. Now, both of them are going to be eliminated at some stage during the evening or tomorrow morning, but I think the transfers were more between both of those than to any other candidates.
Well, Sean, thank you very much for that insight. And as Sean mentioned, he is awaiting an update from the officials. He's representing Minister Mary Butler, and we will also hear from the representative for Senator John Cummins. As mentioned, they have outlined their reasons for wanting to see the count continue. So we hope to have a further update after 10 o'clock.
Speaker. This is Waterford's WLR.
WLR News at 10. Good evening, I'm Kyle Butler. In news just in, Taoiseach Simon Harris has been re-elected on the first count in Wicklow. It is not yet known if the Waterford count will continue into the early hours or be suspended until tomorrow morning. And we're going to cross live now to our WLR News and Current Affairs team on the Cork Road at SETU. And I'm joined now by Jordan Lars and Dimphna Nugent. Guys, what's the latest?
Thanks very much, Kyle. Yeah, as you mentioned there, so we are currently awaiting the fourth count at the moment. That is the redistribution of the 514 votes from the most recently eliminated candidate. That is John D. Walsh of the Irish People. So just to recap on earlier, David Cullinan was elected on the first count with 11,936 first preference votes. surpassing the quota of 10,731 with 1,205 votes to spare. That surplus was redistributed. Then we went on to the third count after the elimination of Aaron Joyce and Mark O'Neill. We are currently awaiting count number 4 at the moment. John Cummins of Fine Gael is 299 off the quota, and Mary Butler is 720 votes off the quota. We've just heard from Sean Dower from Fianna Fáil, so representatives from both Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael have met with the team here at SETU, and they have requested that the count will go on until the second and third seats are finished. At the moment, they're awaiting an update after 10 o'clock to see if that will happen. But at the moment, we are just waiting to hear whether or not this count will go into the early hours, if the second and third seats are filled, and then we could potentially be coming back tomorrow to see that fourth seat being filled. But Dimphna Nugent, I suppose, it is a formality, so to speak, that John Cummins and Mary Butler will be elected. All eyes are on that fourth seat, the battle between Matt Shanahan and Conor McGuinness.
They've been elected at this stage, Jordan, in all but official title. We know that John Cummins is going to take that second seat. There's no possible way he can't. We know that Mary Butler is going to take that third seat. All eyes are on the fourth seat, and honestly, every single candidate that is eliminated, the votes begin to change. It depends on who you talk to on the floor downstairs. The floor is beginning to get very, very busy in terms of party members, supporters, all starting to come along now, all who have tickets, because obviously you can't arrive this evening if you don't have a ticket. Everybody will give you a different answer. Some people are certain that with his lead, it's enough for Conor McGuinness to take a second seat for Sinn Féin, and it would be a truly momentous seat to take for Sinn Féin, representing the West, the Dungarvan, Onrine, wider regions. But I don't know, is it going to be enough, because Matt Shanahan will benefit very significantly from those transfers when they happen.
Yeah, just for context, so Conor McGuinness is currently sitting on 6,716 votes, Matt Shanahan on 5,443. These are after the third counts, so there is a gap of about 1,270 votes. Dimphna, it's a big gap, but it's one that could be eaten into quite easily once these transfers start coming in from the candidates that are eliminated.
Absolutely. You look at the likes of, let's take Ronan Cleary for example. At the moment he has 1,693 votes. We don't know where they're going to go. You go down to Sive O'Neill, she's a very healthy 1,525, and Mary Roach very significantly has 2,717. That's before we even look at Green Party's Marco Kohosik at 1,686. You add those together, there's a significant amount of votes up for grabs. And where they go is anyone's guess, but realistically it looks like, based on the beliefs that the parties hold, I suppose Matt Shanahan is going to obtain a lot of those transfers and benefit from them.
Just to touch upon Marco Kohosik's numbers, of course Marco Kohosik, Green Party sitting TD for Waterford, he polled at around 3.1% of first preference votes. Dimphna, I mean, it's been a shocking day for the Green Party nationally. It looks as if they'll struggle to maintain any seats in the Dáil. That's the way things stand at the moment. You have had junior ministers Oisin Smith and Joe O'Brien losing their seats. That's been confirmed. I mean, I suppose we were all expecting that it would be difficult, but 3.1% of first preference votes I think would have been particularly disappointing.
It's a hard pill to swallow, because when you saw the 2020 general elections, the Green Party appeared to have almost come from nowhere. They were always a minor party that had a solid, reliable support, but never big enough to have ambitions of being in government and being in power. And when they rose, you thought, okay, people want change, people want something different, people are becoming much more climate conscious. Here is another option. Here's something else. And they have been decimated. We saw it in the local elections. We're really just seeing further echoes of it now in the general elections. I don't think there'll be a seat left in the country filled by a Green Party TD.
It's very interesting as well, because you could look at potentially having two Sinn Féin TDs in Waterford, but again, could you be met with the scenario where you have Sinn Féin with the majority of seats in the Dáil, but then again they actually cannot form a cohesive government? Will Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil come to the table and look for somebody else to prop up their government, so to speak? There's been talk of potentially the Social Democrats, Labour. I thought it was quite interesting, the comments earlier from Labour's Thomas Phelan, to say he wouldn't like to see Labour become the mudguard for Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael. So for those that would potentially go into that partnership, there is a sense of, I know there is probably a bit of anxiety around it too.
I was actually speaking with Sinead Ellen Griffin from the Social Democrats, and if you remember, she ran for local elections unsuccessfully, but she ran. She had very similar comments. She said she would like to see more women in power, she'd like to see more women in politics, but she wouldn't like to see the Social Democrats rise just to be a buffer, just to fill seats, to allow the agendas, as she put it, of Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael. But there has to come a time, I suppose, like the Green Party, if you want your party to get into government and have some kind of a say, you do have to, if you'll pardon the pun, get into bed with, the other parties and see what kind of inroads you can make. She really did say very similar points to what Thomas Phelan had said, that this is not how she would like to see the Social Democrats come to power. But I think there's going to be a lot of frustrated voters. And I say that because if you remember, for 2020, Sinn Féin did very, very well. And again, it was because people were looking for that change that they say they so desperately wanted across the country. That change was reflected in the early tallies, in the counts. We saw Sinn Féin come out very strong, over 20,000 votes here alone in Waterford for David Cullinane, but it simply wasn't enough because there weren't enough bums in seats for them to take majority power within government, and that's why we ended up with the coalition. The exact same thing, we'll call a spade, is going to happen here again realistically. So I can see a situation where people are going to wonder, why are we voting if we're not getting what we want from our vote? And there's going to be a lot of discourse over this over the next while.
Absolutely, and I think that goes back to a good point that was made earlier by Patrick Curtin, the People Before Profit Solidarity candidate. He currently sits on 672 votes. That's down about a roughly 400 to 500 votes from their 2020 total when Una Dunphy was their candidate here in Waterford. And he criticised Sinn Féin because he said the vote left, transfer left mandate, it came out too late, and the minor left-leaning parties have suffered on account of it. That was his view.
No, I would agree with that. In fairness, you did hear a lot of vote left, transfer left, and that did start to come through in this general election. But again, it didn't come through as strongly as perhaps it might have. There is a bit more of an alliance. You are seeing much more cohesion between the parties, but still not enough.
Definitely not. Well, just to remind our listeners where we are at the moment, we are currently awaiting count number 4. John D. Walsh of the Irish People has been eliminated. His 514 votes are currently being redistributed. As I mentioned, John Cummins of Fine Gael, 299 off the quota. Mary Butler of Fianna Fáil, 720 off the quota being 10,731. Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael representatives are currently meeting with the team at SCTU to see if we are going to go on with the counts after count number 4. But until then, we'll cross back to you in studio, Kyle, and we'll have all the updates across all of our platforms online and on WLRFM.com in partnership with SCTU.
Thank you very much to Jordan and Dimthna.
Okay, you're very welcome back here to the Count Centre floor. And as I mentioned before 10 o'clock, I spoke with Sean Dower, and he was heading into a meeting with the returning officer and officials here to get an update on what was going to happen tonight. He was representing Minister Mary Butler, and representing Senator John Commons at that meeting was his Director of Elections, John Fitzpatrick. So John, you might outline for us what the actual request was and what the outcome of that meeting was.
Yeah, so thanks very much. So basically, I think we got instructions that the count was going to kind of cease this evening at 11 o'clock. And obviously ourselves and Mary are very close to a quota. So we came together to kind of talk to the returning officer to kind of request, could we go past 11 o'clock? So I think the official process is if there's coordination across all the parties, across the staff here, like we have to be mindful as well that people have been here since 7:30 this morning, and we need kind of the good grace of everyone to kind of keep going. So what they've committed to so far is that we will do count 4, which is this one behind me, and count 5, and then we'll see where we are.
So yourself and Minister Butler's party are happy with the outcome?
We're happy for now. We didn't get any firm commitments, but we didn't get any firm denials either. So, look, we'll keep talking to the returning officer. The communication is very good. They're very open with us and very transparent with us. So, look, we'll be back up after the 4th count. Kind of hoping that they push ahead tonight, especially just to maybe get Minister Butler and John Commons elected.
And looking at the figures then, John, so your candidate, John Commons, is currently on 10,432. The quota is 10,731, so very close. How have the feelings been all day? Because you've been here all day, you've been watching all the tallies, you've been watching as count 1, count 2, count 3 have been taking place. What's the reaction?
Oh, we're very, very proud of John and the campaign he's put in and the vote he's getting. Obviously, the Fine Gael campaign over the last 3 weeks hasn't been great. The nerves are a bit edging away at the sides there the last few weeks. But I think the exit poll settled nerves last night. But in fairness to John, he was always confident. He had the work done. And we knew when we started looking at the Tramore boxes this morning, the Fine Gael vote is up over 10% in every single box in the city. Across the city, across the county, they're pretty much up over 10% in all of them. So we knew early on, like we knew last time, I think we got nearly 9,000 votes. We knew if we got the same this time, with just one candidate, we'd be thereabouts up at the top. So once we saw our vote was holding what it was last time and actually up from what it was last time, I think we're up maybe 2 or 3% on what we got last time. So we knew from early on we'd be in this position where we were close to the top. So we're very, very proud of the vote John got.
And when John was speaking earlier on WLR, he made reference to the unity within the Fine Gael party now and how there seemed to be this concerted effort for everybody to really get behind him and to make this a huge Fine Gael effort.
Yeah, well, as you might have known, like Fine Gael wasn't always united, going back maybe 5-10 years. So, obviously we had a very disappointing general election in 2020. We had no TD, and we were lucky that John got elected to the Senate. And John has worked incredibly hard uniting all the councillors. We had 7 councillors going into the last election, local elections in June. We came out of that with 8 councillors, and every single one of them put their shoulder to the wheel for John over this campaign. Every night we had Shawnee and Liam out in the Cumber area, we had Damien out in Dungarvan, Pat Nugent out, Neve out, right across the city. I mean, everyone put their shoulder to the wheel. We've all the members. I think myself and John sat down maybe 3 or 4 years ago, started looking at our membership and kind of going, look, every party has a lot of members, but how can we get to 20 to 30 of them out when we need them in an election in November, in 2024, 2025, and that's what we did. We had a great team, like a lot of members who came in, first-time members who kind of been attracted to the party by the work John's done, and we had 20 to 30 out every night. I'm not going to name check everyone because I'd forget people, but look, they know there. It was absolutely fantastic to see everyone out, and the unity was there. And like, if you talk to any of the staff, or not staff, any of the volunteers, what they'll say is it felt great to be part of a team. That you get a great buzz out of coming out every night. You're kind of going home going, can we go out again tomorrow night? Whereas, in other years it's very hard to get people out canvassing, especially in November. So look, it was there. John drove us all together. The organisation was united behind him. And look, we have a singular goal for the last 4 years to come in here and get a seat back. And look, hopefully it looks like we're going to do it.
Okay, well, John Fitzpatrick, Director of Elections for John Commons, thank you very much. And as you heard from John, that is the very latest update here from the floor of the Count Centre. John was in a meeting along with Sean Dower representing Fianna Fáil, and they have both been given the update that further counts are taking place tonight, and that came from the returning officer and officials.
tonight, all chilling out, waiting for the next seat to be seated. Hope you're enjoying the tunes tonight. 083 3333 975. A very quick break and we'll head live to the Count Centre.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Bingo at the Forum.
Check house.
Check.
Join us for Bingo at the Forum for the WLR Christmas Appeal for St. Vincent de Paul. Great prizes, great company, and a great night out. It's eyes down on Tuesday, December 3rd from 7 p.m. Get your tickets now by calling in to WLR Ardkeen or the St. Vincent de Paul shops across Waterford. Tickets are just €10 and selling quick. There's a huge raffle on the night. Stay tuned to WLR for more. Bingo at the Forum for the WLR Christmas Appeal, supporting St. Vincent de Paul. Over 18s only.
Live from the Waterford Count Centre, this is WLR, your election station.
Good evening, I'm Kyle Butler. Taoiseach Simon Harris has been elected on the first count in Wicklow in the last hour. But back home, counting continues this evening and is understood to do so until the early hours of this evening at SETU on the Cork Road. I'm joined now by Dimfna Nugent and Jordan Norris. A very good evening to you guys.
Good evening to you, Kyle. Yes, as you mentioned, so we are going to keep counting at least into the 4th and 5th counts, and then we will review where we're at from there. But just to let our listeners know and give them a reminder of what's happened so far. So David Cullinan of Sinn Féin was elected on the first count, 11,936 first preference votes, exceeding the quota of 10,731 by 1,205. That surplus was then redistributed for count 2, and then the two lowest candidates were eliminated, those being Mark O'Neill Independent and Aaron Joyce Independent. Their combined total of 221 votes was then put out for count 3, and now we're in count 4, where the 514 votes of the Irish People's John D. Walsh is up for redistribution. John Cummins of Fine Gael is currently 299 off the quota, and Mary Butler of Fianna Fáil is 720 off the quota. And then looking at the rest of the picture for the 4th seat, it seems to be a dogfight between Conor McGuinness of Sinn Féin and independent TD Matt Shanahan, although Conor McGuinness holds a 1,270 vote lead at the moment. So Dimfna Nugent, I suppose it seems a formality. We're just waiting for John Cummins and Mary Butler to be called elected, but all eyes are on where the transfers will go from those eliminations into tonight and tomorrow to see what way the picture lies for that 4th seat.
Indeed, Jordan. I'm just looking there at the results of the 2020 general election. I think both Mary Butler and John Cummins will be very, very pleased with how this election has turned out. If you were to look at Mary Butler's first preference votes in 2020, she had 6,644 on the first count. This time around it was 9,962, and so far with the benefit of transfers she's sitting at 10,011 votes. It's been a very successful year for Fianna Fáil and very similar for Fine Gael. John Cummins there last time out, we know, missed out on that final seat with Marco Kohosig nabbing it instead, but John Cummins had received 4,592 first preference votes in 2020, and this year it was 10,376. That is an enormous leap for John Cummins, and I suppose you put the man in the Shannon and he put the hard work in.
Absolutely. I mean, the track record is probably coming to the fore for John Cummins. That seems to be what's the difference now. But I suppose what Damien has mentioned throughout the day, and I think, you know, members of the party have agreed with it as well, is that probably Fine Gael in Waterford as a whole, there was an opinion at once upon a time that maybe there was City Fine Gael and County Fine Gael, but the whole of Waterford Fine Gael is a united front now. It's probably in the best position it's been in for a number of years in that sense.
It is, and I think putting John Cummins forward as the single Fine Gael candidate for the county has done absolute wonders, because you're right, and look, maybe you can see that, or you can argue that this year with Sinn Féin by putting forward Conor McGuinness and David Cullinan, but I think they're still a very united front. When you looked at the 2020 general election, you saw Fine Gael put forward John Cummins and Damien Geoghegan, and neither really came to fruition. Obviously John Cummins was later elected to the Shannon, but this time you've seen all of the eggs being put in John Cummins' basket, and it has paid off. There is solidarity within the party across the county. It has paid off.
Definitely has, and I mean, you can see it's a kind of a bounce back from the local elections as well, where they had 8 councillors elected to the 32-seat Waterford City and County Council. So there seems to have been a wave of support behind the party in terms of it becoming a united front. There were obviously issues logistically. I mean, when they left here in 2020, it kind of seemed that there was a bit of a divide, but that has been conquered now, and I think we're kind of seeing the evidence in the polls.
I think so, and I think You know, you'll often hear of candidates joining a party and then towing the party line, so to speak, but it seems to be that every single councillor and or TD within Fine Gael on a local and a national level, they've all got the same views. They've all still have the same views as when they entered. They seem to have reached a winning sort of a combination of what's required to be successful in both local and national government. Fine Gael seem to be the party to beat at this moment in time. They show no signs of slowing down. Popularity for Simon Harris is very high. Popularity locally here in the ground, very high.
And as for Fianna Fáil, I mean, there was talk of potentially adding Councillor Adam Wise to their party ticket, but they chose to run one candidate in Mary Butler. That decision does seem to have paid off. It does seem only to be a matter of when rather than if for her to be called to be re-elected to the Dáil for a third term, Dimphna. And I mean, that's another thing as well. There's always going to be a Fianna Fáil vote in Waterford. To pool it all behind one particular resource, you'll see that spread coming in across the board. They performed quite well on the local elections level here in Waterford, and I think, again, we're seeing the evidence of that being translated again.
They have, but again, if you're looking at Mary Butler, 9,962 first preference votes.
And I believe we're actually going to have an announcement for the fourth count while we're here at the moment.
The following is the result of the fourth count, which consisted of the distribution of John D. Walsh's 514 votes. Total of votes distributed 514 votes, 514. Butler, Mary, Fianna Fáil, votes this count 16. Total votes 10,027, 10027. Cleary, Dr. Ronan, Aintu, votes this count 129. Total votes 1822, 1,822. Conway, Frank, non-party, votes this count 171. Total votes 942, 942. Cummins, John, Fine Gael, votes this count 9. Total votes 10,441, 10441. Curtin Patrick, People Before Profit, Solidarity, votes this count 16. Total votes 688, 688. Conor D. McGuinness, Sinn Féin, votes this count 19. Total votes 6,735, 6735. Mangan Killian, non-party, votes this count 27. Total votes 695, 695. Marco Cosse, Green Party, votes this count 4. Total votes 1690, 1,690. Sive O'Neill, the Labour Party, votes this count 9. Total votes 1,534, 1534. Roach Mary, Social Democrats, votes this count 10. Total votes 2,780, 2780. Shanahan Matt, non-party, votes this count 72. Total votes 5,515, 5515. Non-transferable papers not effective, votes this count 32. Total votes 50. As there is no surplus for this distribution, I will now exclude the lowest candidate and distribute his votes. Patrick Curtin, 688 votes, 688. I will now proceed to the fifth count.
So we will now proceed to the fifth count as called there. So Patrick Curtin of Solidarity, People Before Profit, has been eliminated. So 688 votes will now be redistributed. And just to go back over the figures, so looking at the quota, Dimphna, 10,731. John Cummins remains 290 off the quota, and Mary Butler remains 704 off the quota. So it seems as if potentially we might see some movement in the fifth and sixth counts in particular. Those are the ones we're probably looking out for this evening.
I'm almost afraid to say it out loud because I had put all my eggs on the fourth count. I said, this is it. I think poor John Cummins is probably going to be feeling every single second of this. 9 votes is not an awful lot to inherit there. 10,441. He can see the end in sight of 10,731, but he still has a ways to go. But he knows he's got that seat. It just needs to be formally announced, but he knows it's his.
Absolutely. And just to look at the Matt Shanahan and Conor McGuinness picture, Conor McGuinness and Matt Shanahan, Conor McGuinness currently stands on 6,735, Matt Shanahan on 5,515, a lead of 1,220 for Conor McGuinness, but Matt Shanahan clawing back about 50 seats there. So again, it just goes to show the transfers, they can be quite interesting. You look at the amount that went to Ronan Cleary of Aintu there, Frank Conway independent as well. So anything can happen with these transfers, and that's what we're waiting to see. But at the moment, Kyle, we are waiting the fifth count, the redistribution of Patrick Curtin's 688 votes. Until then, it's back to you.
Thank you very much to Jordan and Difna.
Trusted news for Waterford. We are WLR.
And that's all from the newsroom for now. For all your Waterford general election news this weekend, keep up to date on air and on our live stream service on WLRFM.com.
Okay, you're very welcome back to the floor of the Count Centre here at SETU. And as you will have heard, Jordan and Dymphna took us through the figures following the fourth count. Now, earlier today, we heard from Labour Party members. We heard from councillors Seamus Ryan and councillor Thomas Phelan. But of course, the Labour candidate in the Waterford constituency was Sive O'Neill. Sive, thank you for joining us. Sive, as after count 4, 1,534 votes. What's your reaction to that?
Well, I'm delighted with the vote I got. I received 1,500 first preference votes, which is about 2.7% of the vote overall. And I'm actually delighted with that, Kieran, because I came into this race just 6 weeks ago. I had no idea I was going to stand in a general election this year. So, you know, we were coming from a very slow start, if you like. And I got a really warm reaction on the doorsteps. I think that if I had been better known, if I'd had more time, if I'd run in the local elections, the outcome would have been much stronger for the Labour Party. And I do think that going forward, our chances of improving on this vote next time around are really good. So I'm delighted.
Because, of course, looking back to 2020, and of course, John Pratt, Councillor John Pratt was the candidate, and he polled 3,498 first preference votes, 6.5%. So it is a significant drop on the result from 2020.
Well, John Pratt, he's a councillor in the west of the county. He's very well known. And, you know, a good share of that vote would have been a personal vote for John. He's very highly regarded. For his own reasons, he decided not to stand this time around, and I was invited to stand and went through the nomination process and have his endorsement. So he was delighted. I went canvassing with John all around his area, and the truth is that I'm a new candidate, and it takes the public a time to acquaint themselves with a new political personality, and people like to vote for people they know and trust, especially people that they know from their area. So I'm not disappointed with that. I don't think John will be disappointed. It's our first outing with me as a new candidate, and I very much expect that we will improve on this in the future. And of course, it's worth remembering that the Labour Party has had a long history in Waterford, but over the last 2 decades we've had many different candidates. So I think things need to settle down as well, and we need to give the voters an assurance that there will be a Labour candidate who's going to stick with it, and I am going to stick with it over the next while for sure.
And what were the specific issues, Sive, which were being raised with the Labour Party during your canvassing across Waterford?
Well, of course, housing was probably the number one issue. I met people who were living with their parents who had adult children living with them. I met people who were stuck in rental accommodation, paying exorbitant rents, who wanted to buy a house and couldn't see a pathway for that. All of those issues have been well ventilated, but you know, when you're out canvassing and you're talking to people, you get the sense of how stuck people really are in those situations, and that none of the promises that politicians make can, you know, magically make those challenges disappear. So it's very dispiriting for so many people. The other issue that came up, interestingly, for a Labour point of view, is issues around workers' rights, the ability to unionise, and of course the state of pensions. They're not index linked at the moment, and many older people on fixed incomes are, you know, really frustrated that their incomes haven't kept up with the rise in inflation. Other issues that came up were like childcare and of course climate action. Now that would have been an issue I would have brought to the voters as much as the voters brought to me. I would love to have seen that debated much more. I think it's going to be a really important issue for Ireland, and the larger political parties are not really taking it seriously enough.
Do you see the Labour Party playing a key role in the formation of the next government?
Well, that will be a matter for the leadership and the parliamentary party, and we don't know yet who's going to be in the parliamentary party. I think it's good for the Labour Party to be considered a possible partner. Personally, based on how Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael have treated the Green Party, it seems a little unwise. You know, they chew and spit out their junior partners. I think the way they treated the Green Party as a junior partner was really quite despicable in the last few months, maybe the last year or so. And they made it clear that, you know, the Green Party was something of an irritant and something that could be gotten rid of. So I'd be concerned that the Labour Party could end up in that situation. I think we should be very cautious. I think we should see what the Social Democrats can offer and let them have a go. I mean, the Labour Party has gone into coalition before. The Social Democrats haven't been tested, so maybe it's their turn. And of course, we just have to wait for the election numbers to settle down so we know who's actually got the votes. And it'll be a challenging thing to form a government based on the tallies and the exit poll. But I think a small party like the Labour Party shouldn't be jumping to enter government talks before the election is even over, you know.
Sive O'Neill, thank you very much for joining us on WLR. So that's the update from Labour, and of course we'll bring you all of the updates from all of the political candidates and their supporters as we get them live from the floor here in the Count Centre.
Across Waterford, on mobile and the smart speaker. This is Waterford's WLR.
WLR News at 11. Good evening, I'm Kyle Butler. 23 of the 174 seats have now been filled in the 34th Dáil. The counting of votes will continue in some constituencies tonight, while others have been stood down and will resume tomorrow morning. As it currently stands, Fine Gael have 8 TDs, Sinn Féin has 6. Back home, David Cullinan has regained his seat, and while the 5th count is underway, we can now cross live to Jordan Norris and Dymphna Nugent at the count centre on the Cork Road at SETU. A very good evening to you both.
A very good evening to you as well, Kyle. As you mentioned, we are on count number 5 here, which is the redistribution of the 688 votes received by People Before Profit Solidarity candidate Patrick Curtin, who is the latest candidate to be eliminated. So just to go over what has happened so far. On the first count, David Cullinan of Sinn Féin was elected with 11,936 first preference votes, 1,205 above the 10,731 quota. So David Cullinan elected to the Dáil for a third term. Going on to count number 2, Cullinan's surplus of 1,205 was redistributed. No candidates reaching the quota. So that saw independent Aaron Joyce and independent Mark O'Neill eliminated. Their combined total of 221 votes was then redistributed for count number 3. Again, no candidates reaching the quota. The next candidate to be eliminated was John D. Walsh of the Irish People. His 514 votes redistributed for count number 4. Again, no candidates reaching the quota, and we've now seen Patrick Curtin eliminated. His 688 votes are currently up for redistribution. And I'm joined now by Dymphna Nugent. And Dymphna, if you could you just give an indication as to the numbers for every candidate after count number 4?
I can indeed, Jordan. Fianna Fáil's Mary Butler benefited by 16 votes in the 4th count. She now stands at 10,027 votes. Aontú's Ronan Cleary earned 129 votes. He stands at 1,822. Independent candidate Frank Conway earned 171 votes there. He did quite well out of that transfer. 942 votes is where he currently stands. John Cummins, Fine Gael's John Cummins, of course, who is waiting to be declared as the recipient of that second seat, earned 9 votes from Patrick Curtin's transfers. He sits at 10,441 votes. Sinn Féin's Conor McGuinness, waiting in the wings to know whether he'll get that 4th seat, earned 19 votes there, and he sits at 6,735 votes. Independent Killian Mangan, we're kind of expecting to hear an update about him fairly shortly. He gained 27 votes. He sits at 695. Green Party's Marco Kohasig, 1,690 votes is where he sits after earning 4 from Patrick Curtin's transfers. Labour's Sive O'Neill is sitting at 1,534 votes after earning 9 votes there. Social Democrat candidate Mary Roach, 2,780 votes after earning 10 votes from the transfers. Independent TD Matt Shanahan earned 72 votes there, and he sits at 5,515. So the numbers are swelling, but still not enough to reach that quota for that seat.
Absolutely. So the quota, as I've mentioned, is 10,731. So John Cummins of Fine Gael is currently 290 off the quota, and Mary Butler of Fianna Fáil is 704 votes off the quota. As I mentioned, 688 votes out for redistribution, this time from Patrick Curtin's tally. Dymphna, I suppose it's probably somewhat unlikely that 290 of those 688 will go to John Cummins, so it seems as if we'll probably rumble on into another count potentially this evening before John Cummins is eventually elected.
I completely agree. I thought it was going to be much earlier than this, but it's too big of a climb, I think, for John Cummins to reach that in one go at this stage. 10,441, it's a very, very healthy figure, but not enough to reach that 10,731, and I just can't see a possibility where he's going to be transferred enough votes to be awarded a seat in this next count. I could be mistaken, of course, but I don't think so. So I think that we're in for either a very long night or a very long day tomorrow.
Potentially, yes. We wait to see what will be done after the 5th count. The situation will be reviewed after that. Just to take a look at the race for the 4th seat, Sinn Féin's Conor McGuinness is currently there on 6,735. That is a 1,220 vote lead ahead of independent TD Matt Shanahan. As we mentioned, in the course of tomorrow's proceedings, transfers will be absolutely vital. I know that seems like a healthy lead right now, but maybe it mightn't be as healthy come the the height of it tomorrow.
Indeed, and look, it's hard sometimes when you, especially when you're sitting at home and maybe you're not too familiar with how transfers work and how these things happen. You don't have to be a part of, say, parties like Ain 2, but you will benefit from Ronan Cleary's surplus or his votes when he is eliminated. So that will go towards a party that perhaps shares the same views as Ain 2 do. So it'd be very unlikely, for example, for Fine Gael to transfer to Sinn Féin and the likes, but you're going to see Ronan Cleary's votes, you're going to see Sive O'Neill's votes, you're going to see Mary Roach's votes, all transfer Marco Cahasig's, and realistically Matt Shanahan is going to be the recipient of a healthy amount of those votes based on what we know about transfers at this stage.
Absolutely. So as things stand at the moment, it looks as if independent Cillian Mangan would potentially be the next candidate to be eliminated, followed by Sive O'Neill of Labour, then on to Marco Cahasig, sitting Green Party TD. He looks resigned to losing his seat, then potentially on to Ronan Cleary of Ain 2, and then it remains to be seen what will happen from Mary Roach of the Social Democrat surplus as well, Dimphna. So it's going to be a long and somewhat tedious process, but it'll all bear fruit in the end, and we will see who does get that all-elusive fourth seat. It seems a matter of a formality that John Cummins and Mary Butler will be elected to the Dáil, but until they are, we will leave it back to you in studio, Kyle, and the minute we have an update, it will be on our stream here thanks to SETU. But until then, back to you.
Thank you very much for that update, Jordan and Dimphna. Looking at the national picture, Gerry the Monk Hutch remains in the running for a seat in Dublin Central. Public Expenditure Minister Pascal Donoghue is labelling support for Mr Hutch as protest votes.
I think it was an indication for many within my constituency regarding. I think it was an indication for many within my constituency regarding the very high level of disaffection that they feel regarding our city, regarding our country and society. And clearly I have to redouble my efforts to respond back to the issues that are behind that vote.
Meanwhile, outgoing TD Charlie Flanagan has given his predictions for the national vote.
William Aird will be elected on the next count, which will be the first of three declarations here in the constituency of Laois. My reckoning is Fine Gael, Fianna Fáil Sean Fleming, and independent Republican Brian Stanley. So no surprises here in Laois. This, I think, was entirely predictable.
Trusted news for Waterford. We are WLR.
And that's the latest from the newsroom. For all your Waterford general election news this weekend, keep up to date on air and on our live stream service on WLRFM.com.
Thank you very much indeed, Kyle.
Okay, you're very welcome back to the floor of the Count Centre. Here we are awaiting movement. We are awaiting some results for Count 5. And I'm delighted to be joined now by the Parliamentary Assistant to Minister of State, Mary Butler, Lawrence McCormack. Lawrence, it's been a long day. Where do we stand at the moment?
I think heading into this count now, it's looking like it could be slow progress. Mary is picking up votes with each count, but it's obviously going to go into tomorrow at this stage. We'll be hoping that it will be confirmed at least early tomorrow. We're delighted with the first count and the 18+% there, and obviously nationally as well, with the party up based on tallies, of course, at about 21.9, 22%. So overall, I think despite some high-profile seat losses around the country, there's been some very positive gains. And I think, obviously locally for Mary and the national picture as well, I think anyone in a Fianna Fáil camp is going to be quite positive as we end the first day. I don't know, around the country they could be going a bit later than they are here, but as we come to an end here for Mary and around the country, it is looking positive in the Fianna Fáil camp.
And potentially Mary Butler could be the most high-profile female Fianna Fáil politician following today's results.
Yeah, well, she will likely be the most senior, having come in 2016. She'll probably be joined by, in terms of profile, you have obviously Norma Foley, who sat at Cabinet the last term. She came in 2020. Obviously Anne Rabbitte was there as well in terms of the ministerial positions, but she's obviously looking like she could be losing her seat there or under significant pressure. So I think we don't want to get ahead of ourselves, obviously, but if there were to be government formation talks and all the rest of it, you would certainly think, based on the numbers, that Mary's in a strong position to potentially, if not a senior ministry, certainly a junior ministry. But again, you don't want to get too far ahead of yourselves at this stage, but I think she's certainly, in terms of her ranking in the party, in a very good position.
And Mary paid a special tribute to you during her interview with my colleague Damien a little bit earlier. What was it like working so closely with her on the campaign?
Yeah, I was absolutely delighted with that tribute, and I think the whole team behind Mary in the constituency, her staff, obviously I came on board in 2020, a lot of the staff were in place before that. She's been absolutely great to work with. She's an extremely hard worker, no nonsense. She's all about the work. There's no fluff or anything else around the edges. So I think when we got together to work together, we were both aligned in that sense, that we were focused on the work and getting the job done. And as soon as I joined the team in 2020, I joined the team in May 2020, she got over the line in February 2020. She was straight into getting re-elected, and as soon as I joined the team, the focus was on getting re-elected 4.5, 5 years down the line.
Well, once again, Lawrence McCormack, well done. Of course, she's not over the line yet, but looking very positive, so well done on all your efforts.
Thanks very much, and we hope it's been a long day for a lot of the team, and we hope to see it confirmed early tomorrow, and we'll all be delighted then.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to take a little wander down here now in the Count Centre, and as you can see, compared to earlier today, crowds have dispersed. So a lot of people have left, but many people are still around. And there's one guy here, I was going to have a little chat with John Bois, who I was speaking with earlier. He's actually a member of Young Fine Gael, and he was telling me all about his involvement and how he got involved with the Fine Gael party. So John, you're living in Dungarvan, I understand. How have you found today's experience here in the Count Centre?
It was a long day, but the Count staff are doing a great job at getting through it as fast as they can. So I hope we can get someone elected today before we can go home. Yeah.
And of course you were a key member of John Cummins' canvassing team. You were out and about. For a young person, what was that experience like?
It was interesting. Like, it's people don't expect you to be so young, like, on the door, so you get a nice reaction, I suppose. And it was interesting to see how it works, the different reactions of people and all that. Yeah.
Very good. And of course, was it a positive experience? We hear so much about social media now, which is a key part of politics, but being out and about, knocking on the door, speaking to people and interacting, that's really essential, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I wrote an article there in the Dungarvan Observer, so it's promoting our social media account on Instagram. We're putting up like memes and stuff, trying to reach out to young people and engage with them, in a way that they can relate to, and like trying to present the information in an acceptable manner, because often it's just, it's buried in the article, and even I, kind of find it hard to keep track of things. So, yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah, well, keep up all your efforts, John, and will you be back here tomorrow?
I think my mother wanted me to study for the leaving cert, so probably not.
Other duties to attend to. Yeah, so yeah, well done. Thank you for speaking to me, John. Yeah. So we're making our way down here now, and we have some other Fine Gael members here as well. And Senator Garrett Ahern is here from South Tipperary. Thank you for speaking to us. My pleasure. Looking at the performance of John Cummins here in Waterford, it must be great for the Fine Gael party at a national level.
Well, I'd say even more than great. I think John's result is phenomenal. As a party, we would have been very hopeful to win a seat in Waterford. John has put in immense work over the last 4.5 years. I've seen it myself personally in the Shannon, how hard he's worked for the people of Waterford. But I don't think any of us, even taking into account how hard he worked, would have realised he'd get over 10,000 votes. This is an incredible result. It's probably one of the best results in the country, in my view, in terms of how many votes he got on the first count. I think this is a testament to the people of Waterford and the South East region that they want a minister in the next government, and John is certainly a leading player in the Fine Gael party now after being elected. It's not official yet, but we all know it will be in the morning, and I think he has a huge opportunity to play a very senior role within the party of Fine Gael for the next 5 years.
And of course, we've been focused on the Waterford results here today, but we've been checking in with colleagues around the country and particularly in the region. We spoke to our colleagues in Wexford and the Carlow Kilkenny constituency. What's been happening in South Tip today?
Yeah, no, we've had a very good day in South Tip and Fine Gael as well. We'll win a seat. Again, it's not official, a bit like John here today. It'll be confirmed tomorrow, where Councillor Michael Murphy will be elected. He'll get the second seat in South Tipperary after Matty McGrath. The third seat is wide open. And then in North Tipperary, we won't win a seat there, but it's always been a difficult constituency for us. But in the whole, in terms of taking the two constituencies into account, because it was split in the boundary change a year ago, that win in South Tipperary is another gain for us. So if you look at the South East region, we have a gain in South Tipperary, we have a gain in Waterford, we'll have a gain in Wicklow Wexford, we've possibly a gain in Wicklow. We've an amazing result in Carlow with Catherine Callaghan. So I think in the South East region for Fine Gael, excluding Wexford constituency, it's actually been a really, really positive day for Fine Gael.
Very good. Well, Garrett Ahern, thank you very much for that update. So that's it for the moment from the floor of the count centre here. And as I said, we are awaiting count number 5.
This is WLR, your election station.
Welcome back to the Count Centre. It is Jordan Norris and Dimphna Nugent here on the Cork Road. We are currently awaiting the results of count number 5. Count number 5 is the distribution of Patrick Curtin's Solidarity People Before Profit 688 votes. To recap over what has happened so far today, David Cullinan of Sinn Féin was elected on the first count. He had 11,936 first preference votes, reaching the 10,731 quota with 1,205 votes to spare. His surplus was then redistributed for count number 2. No other candidates reached the quota, which saw the elimination of independents Aaron Joyce and Mark O'Neill. Their combined tally of 221 was then distributed for count number 3. Again, no candidates reaching the quota, which led to the elimination of John D. Walsh of the Irish People. His 514 then redistributed. Again, no one reaching the quota, and that finds us where we are now on count number 5, awaiting the distribution of 688 votes from Patrick Curtin. As I mentioned, the quota is 10,731. The nearest to that quota at the moment is Fine Gael's John Cummins, who is 290 off the mark on 10,441, and Mary Butler of Fianna Fáil has also passed the 10,000 mark on 10,027. She is 704 votes off the mark. Dimphna Nugent, if you would you just have a run over as to where the figures lie after count number 4, please?
I will indeed, Jordan. Fianna Fáil's Mary Butler, as you said, sitting at 10,027 votes, so she has exceeded that 10,000 mark, but she still has to reach 10,731. Into's Dr. Ronan Cleary, 1,822. Independent candidate Frank Conway, 942. Fine Gael's John Cummins waiting in the wings there for seat number 2, 10,441. Sinn Féin's Conor McGuinness, 6,735. Independents Killian Mangan, 695. Green Party's Marco Kohasig, who is of course a sitting TD at present, 1,690. Labour's Sive O'Neill, who is a newcomer to this election, 1,534. Social Democrats councillor Mary Roach, 2,780. And Independent TD Matt Shanahan, 5,515. So I can't see it being a situation where count number 5, we've already been told, is going to be the last count that is called this evening. I can't see it being a situation that we're going to have any seats filled past. We already have, of course, David Cullinan taking that first seat in the Waterford constituency. I can't see it being a situation where the 5th count is going to give us a second seat, Jordan.
Absolutely. If that was the case, then John Cummins would have to receive 290 of Patrick Curtin's 688 votes, which I suppose when you look at it from an ideology point of view, that probably is quite unlikely, Dimphna. So it does seem as if for the 2nd, 3rd and 4th seats to be filled in Waterford, we are most likely going to be coming back to the drawing board tomorrow morning by the sounds of things.
I think so. I think we're at least looking at count 6 before we can see John Cummins take a seat. It's 7 or 8 even for Mary Butler, and then it's really going beyond that. So we're going to be here right until that final minute, and it's going to go well into tomorrow morning, if not a little bit later past lunchtime tomorrow.
Absolutely. Just looking at the race for the 4th seat, at the moment, the 4th position is occupied by Sinn Féin councillor Conor McGuinness on a total of 6,735, and he is followed in 5th by Independent Matt Shanahan on 5,515. And we have a count, I believe, at the moment. We are crossing for count number 5.
The following is the result of the 5th count, which consisted of the distribution of Patrick Curtin's 688 votes, 688. Total of votes distributed, 688 votes. Butler Mary Fianna Fáil votes this count 16. Total votes 10,043. 10043. Cleary Dr. Ronan Aintu votes this count 36. Total votes 1,858. 1858. Conway Frank non-party votes this count 25. Total votes 967. Cummins John Fine Gael votes this count 12. Total votes 10,453. 10453. Conor D. McGuinness Sinn Féin votes this count 147. Total votes 6,882. Mangan Killian non-party. Marco Cossack, Green Party, 29, 1,719. Sive O'Neill, the Labour Party, 57, 1591. Mary Roach, Social Democrats, 193. Total votes, 2,973. Shanahan Matt, non-party. Votes this count, 30. Total votes, 5,545. As there is no surplus for distribution, I will now exclude the lowest candidate and distribute his votes. Killian Mangan, 798 votes. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to conclude matters for this evening and adjourn tomorrow to 9 a.m. to continue the count. I would ask that everybody that is due to attend would bring their tickets. The same tickets for today will be required to gain entry.
So there you have it, as you have heard from our presiding officer. That is it so far for this evening. Killian Mangan is the latest candidate to be eliminated. He had 798 votes, so that will bring us to count number 6, but that will not proceed until 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. So 798 votes from Killian Mangan there. John Cummins is the closest to the quota of 10,731. He sits on a total of 10,453 now, still considerably over 200 votes off the mark. Dimphna Nugent, it's going to be a very, very interesting day tomorrow. 3 new Waterford Dáil TDs.
Extremely interesting. I think that it's going to take us a lot longer to get to where we thought we were going to be. Very healthy transfers there for Mary Roach. 193 of Patrick Curtin's votes there being transferred. But I think it's going to be it's going to take a while tomorrow, Jordan, and it literally cannot be predicted. That's what makes these elections genuinely so exciting. You just can't foresee where it's going to go.
You cannot foresee where it's going to go. I mean, it's ebbed and flowed all day. So even from when the tally boxes were first opened this morning, you see people swapping second and third, first position, fourth and fifth, all the way through, all day. It has ebbed and flowed throughout, and again, it is quite finely poised in particular for that 4th seat. We're in for a real battle tomorrow.
We are indeed, and you can keep up to date on WLRFM.com as well as all of the streaming platforms on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, what am I forgetting, LinkedIn, so many more. We're on them all. We thank you so much for joining us and staying with us from the very early hours this morning until the final minute this evening. We are back on air on your radio and on all your streaming devices and on the website tomorrow morning from 9 a.m.
Absolutely. So from us, Jordan Norris, Dimphna Nugent and all the team here at the SETU, we are going to be back on air tomorrow from 9 a.m. with all the latest updates from the Waterford Town Centre. Again, you can come to all our streaming services across all of our platforms, all done in our partnership with SETU. We thank you for tuning in all over the world, wherever you are. We hope you've enjoyed our coverage, and we will be back tomorrow to see who takes the 2nd, 3rd and 4th seats in the Waterford constituency. But for now, that is it from today from all of us at WLR. We thank you for tuning in, and hopefully you can join us again tomorrow.
Thank you very much indeed, Jordan and Dimphna. Great work.
From Ballon Road to Ballygunner, you're listening to the